Chapter 1842. The two girls step up. Not only is this piece of scarlet gold or a supreme grade material, but you must be able to sense the extremely pure power of the laws of metal within it as well. If those who have comprehended the laws of metal hold this item as they cultivate, comprehending the laws of metal will become much, much easier. There's no need for me to go into further depth about its value. Alright, the bidding for the scarlet gold ore begins now. The starting price will be 100,000 high-grade divine crystals, OD said from the stage. 150,000 high-grade divine crystals, 200,000 high-grade divine crystals. The scarlet gold ore had truly exceeded the value of other supreme grade materials. The main reason was the pure laws of metal hidden within. Cultivation would become much easier when this item was used, so it was enough to pique the interest of all the godhood experts present who had comprehended the laws of metal. Very soon, the scarlet gold ore had reached a price of 500,000 high-grade divine crystals. This had completely exceeded the price of any previous supreme grade material. The bidding war for the scarlet gold ore continued. Four clans with overgods constantly increased the price as they engaged in a fierce struggle. They had basically taken out all their wealth to fend off each other. Shiyu sat in her viewing box with her veil on. As she listened to the bidding war outside, she became slightly confused. She murmured gently, "Isn't the scarlet gold ore a material that the patriarch needs? Why haven't I heard the patriarch bid? Does the patriarch plan on stepping in at the end?" "Sister Shiyu, what are you mumbling to yourself for?" Mo Yen turned her head and stared at Shiyu with her large, beautiful eyes as she listened to Shiyu murmur. "It's nothing. I'm just curious about why the patriarch isn't bidding for the scarlet gold ore again." Before he left, he had given a list of materials he was looking for to all of us elders. He asked us to look out for these materials and to purchase them regardless of the cost once we found them. The scarlet gold ore is one of the materials that the patriarch needs, but I haven't heard him bid at all, which was why I grew curious, Shiyu said with some confusion. Mo Yen came to a realization. She rolled her eyes slowly, and her face suddenly changed. "Sister Shiyu, do you think Patriarch Jian Chen has run out of divine crystals? After all, he bought quite a lot of things before. He must have spent all the divine crystals on him." "That shouldn't be likely," Shiyu hesitated. Her instincts told her that it was unlikely. After all, the Patriarch was an overgod and an extremely powerful one at that. He would not be troubled by divine crystals, right? If that's really the case, but the scarlet gold ore has already reached a price of 1.5 million. "I don't have that much on me, so there's nothing I can do either," Shiyu frowned helplessly. In the end, the scarlet gold ore was purchased by the Blood Blade sect of the Divine Kingdom of Scarlet Clouds for 2 million high-grade divine crystals. The Blood Blade sect. Jian Chen sat in his viewing box and stared at where the people from the Blood Blade sect resided. The light in his eyes flickered with uncertainty before becoming determined. The scarlet gold ore was a material crucial for the forging of the twin swords. If he missed it this time, he had no idea when he could find more of it. As a result, he could not let it go. "I'll go find the people from the Blood Blade sect once they leave the auction. I'll try to exchange for it using other things I have on me." Jian Chen made up his mind and began to pay attention to the people from the Blood Blade sect secretly. The item for auction next is also a material. It's called pyrogold. Jian Chen became stunned once again when the next item was taken out. He let out a long sigh as he felt extremely conflicted inside. The pyrogold was also a material for forging the twin swords. Normally, it was very difficult to find any supreme grade materials for forging the twin swords, yet two had appeared all of a sudden today, and it happened just when he had spent all his divine crystals. Jian Chen felt extremely conflicted inside. At the same time, Shiyu recognized the pyrogold as something that their patriarch had ordered them to find as well. Her eyes immediately lit up. "I've already missed one material that the patriarch has asked us to find. I have to buy the second material no matter what, but I haven't brought that many divine crystals with me. It's impossible for me to stand up to the other overgod clans in price, so it looks like I can only resort to tactics now," she thought. In another viewing box sat two elders from the Yang family. Their eyes had also lit up when they saw the pyrogold. It's pyrogold, pyrogold. The pyrogold that the ancestor ordered us to find has finally appeared. We have to obtain this pyrogold. The ancestor seems to be in desperate need of it, the two elders said softly. Excitement filled their eyes. If they managed to hand the pyrogold to the ancestor, it would be an action of great merit, and they would be rewarded accordingly. Pyrogold is only condensed as a tiny piece. There is only a minuscule chance of it condensing under the blazings of a fireland. It's a supreme grade material, and I don't need to elaborate on its value. The starting price is 100,000 high-grade divine crystals, said OD. Our Tian Yuan clan will bid 100,000 high-quality divine crystals. Shiyu's voice rang out as soon as OD finished her words. It rang through the entire auction center and attracted the attention of countless people. Although the Tian Yuan clan had only been founded recently, their fame did not falter in the face of older organizations with overgods at all. As a matter of fact, their fame had far exceeded the older organizations. This was all because of the fight between their patriarch, Jian Chen, and the protector of the Earth Spirit sect, Weiner Yen. Weiner Yen had comprehended the laws of strength, but Jian Chen fought him empty-handed and achieved a landslide victory. He possessed extremely terrifying power. And in recent times, there was news that the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan had broken through once again by comprehending the laws of the sword in God King Duanmu's dwelling, shocking countless people. Basically, even most of the overgod organizations in the surrounding divine kingdoms had heard about the matter. As a result, many organizations with overgods feared the Tian Yuan clan greatly. In their eyes, the threat of their patriarch was far greater than even the ancestor of the Yang family, Yang Kai. This was because he comprehended the laws of the sword. Shiyu added, the patriarch has given orders that we must purchase all the materials that he requires if we come across it. The pyrogold just happens to be one of them, so I hope everyone can hold back and allow our Tian Yuan clan to obtain the pyrogold. I, Shiyu, will be filled with gratitude. Then Shiyu continued, of course, you are still welcome to bid. There's just one thing I must clarify. The pyrogold is extremely important to our patriarch. The patriarch desires it very much, so even if you win the bid for the pyrogold, our patriarch will not give up on it. That's right, that's right. Sister Shiyu is completely right. Our patriarch Jian Chen desires the pyrogold very much. Moreover, I heard that patriarch Jian Chen doesn't really have a good temperament. I've heard that in the past, inside God King Duanmu's dwelling, an overgod had disrespected him. Afterwards, he slaughtered the overgod without any hesitation at all, dispersing his soul. All of you guess just how many moves he used to kill the overgod. Mo Yen also jumped into the action. She winked at Shiyu cleverly as she said these words with great interest. You definitely won't be able to guess it, so let me tell you. It was one move. Patriarch Jian Chen used a total of one move to kill an overgod. You gods may not believe this, but do go back to your clans and ask your overgod seniors about the truth of this matter. There were so many overgods present when it happened back then, Mo Yen giggled. She felt proud. Although she did not see it happen, she had heard all about it. Chapter 1843, The Threat of the Yang Family, 1. All the people with overgods backing them up hesitated when they heard Shiyu mention how their patriarch, Jian Chen, desired the pyrogold very much. Deep fear filled their eyes. Back when the news of God King Duanmu's dwelling appearing in the Dong'an province of the divine kingdom of Pingtian broke out, basically all the overgods had taken part in the fight for the God King's fortune. They would naturally be familiar with Jian Chen. This time, when they came to the divine kingdom of Pingtian to take part in the centennial auction hosted by the Imperial United Merchants Association, their ancestors had all warned them to never offend the Tian Yuan clan. Even if they had to offend the Yang family, they could not offend the Tian Yuan clan. Everyone realized that the Tian Yuan clan could not be trifled with from the warnings of their ancestors, so the people who were originally interested in the pyrogold all hesitated when they heard that the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan required the item. The people with overgods backing them did not doubt what Mo Yen added at the end, where she talked about how Jian Chen had killed an overgod in a single move. They did not doubt it because their ancestors had witnessed it and told them that such a matter had indeed occurred. Even though it was only an early overgod, It was indeed just a single move. However, those people who did not sit within the viewing boxes did not believe the matter. They all began to voice their doubts. Quite a few of them were gods. Shi Yu and Mo Yen were in no mood to clear up the doubts. They only hoped to deter the organizations with overgods and make them back off and not take part in the competition. It was not important to the two girls whether the people who were irrelevant to the auction of this item believed whether Jian Chen had truly killed an overgod in a single stroke. Since the pyrogold is something that the patriarch requires, our Guhun clan will not take part in the bidding. A middle-aged man stood before the window of a viewing box. He clasped his hands toward Shi Yu with a smile and spoke extremely politely. It's the patriarch of the Guhun clan. I thank the patriarch very much for stepping back. Shi Yu clasped her fist back at him. The Guhun clan was an overgod clan in the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Recently, they had been on good terms with the Tian Yuan clan. We originally planned to buy the pyrogold as well, but I never thought that the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan would require it. If that's the case, our Ling family won't take part in the bidding either. The window of another viewing box had opened. The patriarch of the Ling family from the sword-seeking province stood there. He smiled amicably. Thanks to Jian Chen's support, the Tian Yuan clan possessed some deterrence within the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Excluding the clans from the 5 provincial cities, even many overgod organizations within the royal capital feared the Tian Yuan clan slightly. Afterwards, basically all the overgod clans from within the divine kingdom of Pingtian declared that they would give up on the item, whether they had been interested in it in the first place or not. They had done it out of respect for the Tian Yuan clan, as well as to show their kind intentions. After the overgod clans from the divine kingdom of Pingtian, the organizations from other divine kingdoms did not fall behind either. They all expressed their intentions. Even clans who were truly interested in the pyrogold could not help but give up on it after weighing the cost and benefits. They all took their ancestors' warnings to heart. They would never offend the Tian Yuan clan. Although the pyrogold was a supreme grade material that was rare in this part of the world, it was just a piece of rock after all. There was no need to offend a powerful overgod over a material. The 2 elders of the Yang family who also sat in viewing boxes were currently uneasy. They were hesitant. I never thought that the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan would also require the pyrogold, and that he would need it dearly. But our ancestor also needs it very much. Do we engage in a battle with the Tian Yuan clan for the pyrogold? One of the elders asked. He was anxious inside. The other elder said after some thought, if we take part in the bidding, we'll definitely offend the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan. We can't mess around. In my opinion, we should report to the ancestor as soon as possible and get the ancestor to make a decision on this matter. Let's not tarry then. Let's go back now. The 2 elders did not watch the rest of the auction unfold. They left the auction in a hurry to return to the Yang family. No one else bid for the pyrogold in the huge auction center. The hostess was helpless about the situation. The value of the pyrogold was definitely more than that. In regular auctions, it could go for at least 500,000 high-grade divine crystals, but she could only let the Tian Yuan clan get it for a bargain now. In the end, Shi Yu obtained the pyrogold for 100,000 high-grade divine crystals. Even when the next item for auction was brought up, Jian Chen still had not returned to his senses. He remained seated in his viewing box as he stared at where Shi Yu was. Surprise was plastered across his face. Not only had he come across the 2 girls out of complete surprise here, but Shi Yu had even used a method he had never even thought of to purchase the pyrogold at a reduced price. A while later, Jian Chen shook his head with a faint smile. He murmured, I never thought that I would have so much prestige. I wasn't surprised by how the people from the 5 provincial cities had backed out. After all, I had worked with their ancestors in the past. I just never thought that the overgod clans from other divine kingdoms would do this for me. It's really quite surprising. It was also at this moment that Jian Chen could not help but think back to the time when he and Xin Jian had first come to the Saints' world. They had encountered the early god ancestor of the Lu family, Lu Tian, and engaged in a battle of life and death. Yet now, in less than a century, he who had struggled in a fight against an early god had already become an expert feared by most overgod clans. Jianchen could not help but become amazed by such a great change. The auction continued. Overgod level formation discs and truth tier battle skills that were enough to pique the interest of overgods appeared later on. Each and every one of these items were sold for an astronomical price of over 100,000 high-grade divine crystals. Even organizations with overgods and rich heritages would become interested in treasures like that. It led to a brutal struggle between many organizations. Even when the powerful clans feared by many took part, it was not enough to cause even a pause in the bidding. Every single item held great significance for clans. Their influence would be extremely great, so it was directly tied to the future of the clan. However, the Tian Yuan clan did not take part. It was not because the Tian Yuan clan already had these items. Rather, it was because they lacked the wealth. The pyrogold was only a supreme grade material, which was enough to deter people from taking part. However, before overgod level formation discs and truth tier battle skills for overgods, it was naturally impossible. At the same time, the two elders who had just left the auction politely stood with Yang Oren before the door to a secret room in the forbidden grounds of the Yang family. "Why have you disturbed me during my secluded cultivation?" A dignified voice rang out from the room. It was the ancestor of the Yang family, Yang Kai. Yang Oren and the two elders immediately bowed deeply. One of the elders said, "Ancestor, we found the pyrogold that you require in the centennial auction of the Imperial United Merchants Association." "What? You found the pyrogold?" Yang Kai's excited voice rang out from within the secret room. It was filled with much joy. However, he calmed down very quickly. He asked, "Have you come across problems in obtaining the pyrogold?" The ancestor is wise. The patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan is also in desperate need of the pyrogold. And in recent times, there are rumors that the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan has broken through once again in God King Duanmu's dwelling. If we bid for the pyrogold, it would be extremely likely that we would offend the Tian Yuan clan. As the matter relates to just too much, we were unable to make the decision, which is why we've come to you, ancestor," said the elder. The voice fell silent again. Yang Kai only spoke out after quite a while. "Who from the Tian Yuan clan has come to the royal capital? Is Jianchen here?" "Ancestor, it's Elder Shi Yu of the Tian Yuan clan. We are unable to determine the whereabouts of their patriarch. Recently, he appeared in the Ling family of the sword-seeking province. Also, Elder Lu of our clan was slain by an unknown overgod 3 days ago in the royal capital," Yang Aoran said politely. He explained the matter of Elder Lu's death to the ancestor in detail and did his best to cover up Yang Tai's responsibility. He pushed all the blame onto the overgod that they had yet to identify. "Put the matter of Elder Lu's death aside for now. The pyrogold is extremely important to me, so we must obtain it as soon as possible." Yang Oren set off personally with Yang Lianxin and some elders. "You must invite Shiyu to the clan," Yang Kai's voice rang out from the secret room. The two elders who had returned from the auction shivered inside. Yang Aoran and Yang Lianxin were the two most powerful gods in the Yang family so far. They were both late gods, and they had grasped extraordinary battle skills. In battle, regular late gods were not their opponents. They had never expected the ancestor to send both of them together. Chapter 1844, The Threat of the Yang Family, 2. The centennial auction held by the Imperial United Merchants Association ended. The people who had gathered for it all dispersed. It was especially quiet when the people left. From time to time, there would be people who would glance at the viewing boxes. Their gazes would be filled with curiosity, flicker with uncertainty, or be completely calm. It simply had to be mentioned that quite a lot of impressive items had appeared in the auction this time. However, as with most auctions with treasures, there would be bloody conflict after it. It would never be peaceful. This was very common in the Saints' world, and it was nothing new. People could die for wealth. In the Saints' world, there would always be quite a lot of people who would be willing to risk their lives in an attempt to obtain their own fortune so that they could forge a brand new tomorrow through their personal hard work. The people from the overgod clans slowly made their way outside. All the organizations with overgods had sent several gods to partake in the auction this time. Even though that was the case, a few people who had managed to purchase great treasures remained cautious. Even when they were protected by many elders from their clans, they still would not drop their guard. All of them understood that even if they came from clans with overgods and possessed a great background, there would still be many independent cultivators who would eye the items in their possession while paying no heed to the clan behind them. At this moment, slight ripples of space appeared in a few viewing boxes. Some people had taken out teleportation discs and teleported away in the boxes. Without a single exception, these people had all managed to purchase priceless treasures in the auction. They had left using teleportation formations to prevent others from robbing them. They were being extremely cautious. As a high-quality material, the pyrogold was also valuable, and it was worth 500,000 high-grade divine crystals at the very least. However, the people who carried it, Shiyu and Mo Yen, showed no worry at all. They were especially relaxed, and they even seemed to be excited over the reward that they would receive. "Sister Shiyu, let's go and find Patriarch Jianqin," Mo Yen said to Shiyu. She smiled mischievously as she pulled Shiyu out of the viewing box by her hand. Shiyu nodded. The pyrogold was something that Jianqin needed, so she wanted to hand it over to him as soon as possible, as it would only be truly safe with him. "Let's go and find that person who purchased the soul-drawing lotus. We have to get it no matter what, or the Grand Elder won't be able to last for another 100 years. The Lightning Brothers from the Thunder family of the Divine Kingdom of Ethercloud also stood up and directly made their way towards Jianqin's viewing box. Jianqin remained seated leisurely in his viewing box. He had not left yet. He had already expanded the senses of his soul, which enveloped a viewing box on the other side. The viewing box in question belonged to the people from the Blood Blade sect of the Divine Kingdom of Scarlet Clouds. These people had purchased the refinement adamantine. Every inch of the auction center was covered with powerful formations, so Jianqin was unable to send his senses into the viewing box without destroying the formations. As a result, he could only surround the viewing box's exterior. He would discover them as soon as they came out. At this moment, a slight ripple of space was emitted from the viewing box, which immediately caused Jianqin's expression to change slightly. "Oh no, they're leaving through a teleportation formation disc," Jianqin thought. The people from the Blood Blade sect are only gods at most, so the teleportation formation disc they possess can't be too powerful. Naturally, they won't be able to travel too far, Jianqin thought. He leapt up and shot out of his viewing box as a blur, leaving the auction center. The Lightning Brothers just happened to see Jianqin leave. They naturally took it as him fearing them, so he wanted to flee with the soul-drawing lotus. Without any hesitation, the Lightning Brothers pursued him as quickly as possible. Before long, Shiyu and Mo Yen arrived at Jianqin's viewing box. Just as they had expected, they failed to find Jianqin. On the streets of the royal capital, Jianqin worked out the position of the Divine Kingdom of Scarlet Clouds before immediately rushing off. At the same time, he completely expanded the senses of his soul, hoping to find traces of the Blood Blade sect. However, the royal capital was covered with formations which restricted Jianqin's range. He was only able to cover several hundred kilometers. "I have to leave the vicinity of the royal capital to find the people from the Blood Blade sect." Jianqin strode through the streets. The ground seemed to shrink below him, allowing him to traverse several thousand meters with each step. He moved faster and faster. Behind him were the Lightning Brothers. Sparks flickered around them. They had already used a secret technique, and they currently pursued Jianqin at full speed. Of course, this was not their true full speed. It was just that they were in the royal capital, so whether it was the four brothers or Jianqin, they all had to follow the rules of the royal capital, which forbid flying. Otherwise, they would have been able to move even faster. "This person sure is fast. We actually almost can't catch up to him. Looks like he has comprehended the laws of wind, or he knows a battle skill that increases his speed," the Lightning Brothers communicated with each other. Even though Jianqin grew further and further away, they did not give up and continued to closely pursue him. "We're unable to use our full speed in the royal capital. Once we leave the royal capital, catching up to him with our speed won't be difficult," one of them growled. "That's right. He can't escape once he leaves the royal capital." Before long, Jian Chen left the royal capital. He sat on the ground and shut his eyes. The senses of his soul expanded out in all directions. In just a single instance, it covered a range of 10 million kilometers, and the range constantly increased. There's no sign of the Blood Blade sect within 10 million kilometers. Jian Chen continued to expand the senses of his soul. None in 20 million kilometers. None in 30 million kilometers. None in 40 million kilometers. When Jian Chen's senses of the soul expanded to 50 million kilometers, he finally found the whereabouts of the people from the Blood Blade sect. At that moment, the 4 elders from the Blood Blade sect were not in a good situation. As a matter of fact, it was completely horrible. The 4 of them were trapped in a single killing formation together. At the same time, 4 streaks of lightning flickered behind Jian Chen. The Lightning Brothers had caught up and surrounded Jian Chen. "Sir, the soul-drawing lotus is extremely important to us, so please hand it over. Otherwise, we can only cause you offense," one of the 4 brothers said emotionlessly with his fist clasped towards Jian Chen. Jian Chen receded his senses and slowly opened his eyes. He looked at the 4 of them calmly and said, "The soul-drawing lotus is extremely important to me as well, so I cannot give it up. If that's the case, we can only cause you offense." The faces of the Lightning Brothers turned cold. Suddenly, a powerful presence erupted from them, and it swept towards Jian Chen. Sparks flickered on their bodies, and there seemed to be the vague sounds of thunder. "I don't have that much time to waste on you, but I have heard that the 4 of you know a combination attack that allows you to stand up to even overgods when you use it. I'll give you the chance to use it." Jian Chen withstood their presences easily and said calmly, "If you, sir, wants to witness our combination attack, then we'll help you fulfill that wish," the Lightning Brothers said sternly. Chapter 1845. The Threat of the Yang Family, 3. With that, the gazes of the Lightning Brothers sharpened as if sparks were flickering in their eyes. As they used their technique, they began to shine with endless blue light. Thunder of the 4 symbols, lightning strike. The Lightning Brothers yelled out at the same time. They used all their cultivation as late gods as their presence soared rapidly, instantly reaching its peak. At the same time, the vital energies of the 4 brothers seemed to fuse together. Their power seemed to have truly fused together, allowing them to seemingly surpass the limits of gods and touch on the boundary of overgods. The difference between gods and overgods were as great as a chasm. Apart from an extremely limited number of prodigies, it was not something that regular people could overcome. The difference could be described as heaven and earth. However, the Lightning Brothers were able to use a secret technique to fuse their strength together perfectly, allowing them to erupt with the might of an overgod despite only being gods. Evidently, the 4 brothers were powerful. Boom! With a deafening sound, the Lightning Brothers fused together and shot towards Jian Chen as a huge bolt of lightning. The lightning that they had transformed into was just too quick, having reached the speed level of overgods. However, the 4 of them had not comprehended the laws of overgods, so they were unable to completely integrate with the world around them. Consequently, as the bolt of lightning moved with extreme speed, it produced sonic booms with the air around it. You've just managed to reach the level of overgods. You 4 really are extraordinary. If it were a regular early overgod, you really might have the ability to fight them. Unfortunately, your opponent is me, Jian Chen commented calmly. His slender body stood as still as a mountain. With a wave of his hand, a strand of sword chi was condensed from chaotic force, receiving the bolt of lightning that had a presence of destruction. Against the Lightning Brothers, Jian Chen did not even need to use his laws of the sword. Just chaotic force was enough. This was because his laws of the sword had already reached late overgod, while his chaotic force was only equivalent to a god's cultivation. With a great boom, the lightning from the 4 brothers was dispersed by the sword chi. The 4 of them also emerged from the lightning. Pale-faced, they stumbled a few steps back. They stared at Jian Chen in disbelief. "Why, you're an overgod?" The 4 brothers cried out at the same time. They felt extremely shocked inside. Only powerful experts among all overgods could fend off their combination attack with no effort at all. There were only around a dozen overgods in each divine kingdom. Every single one of them was famed, important figures who reigned over an entire region. These people rarely appeared in public. The four brothers had never expected their luck to be so horrible that they would come across an overgod. Even though we haven't seen all the overgods from the neighboring divine kingdoms, we've heard of them, but none of them are like you, sir. Have you come from an even more distant place? One of the four brothers asked in surprise and doubt. Jianchen did not answer the question. He stared at them calmly and asked, "Now, are you still confident that you can take the soul-drawing lotus from my hands?" The four brothers looked at each other. Their faces were filled with bitterness as well as some sorrow. Suddenly, the four brothers seemed to think of the same thing. They bowed at Jianchen together and said, "Senior, the soul-drawing lotus is just too important to us. We need it to save the Grand Elder's life. If we don't use it, our Grand Elder probably won't even be able to survive for another century. As a result, we hope Senior can give up on the lotus. If we save the Grand Elder, we will return Senior's kindness one day." "Why is it the four of you and not the Thunder family who will be returning the favor?" Jianchen asked. The four brothers hesitated before one of them replied, "You do not know, Senior. Our Grand Elder's soul was heavily injured, and even his vitality was affected. Even if he recovers, it'll be very difficult for him to become an overgod in this lifetime, so his status in the clan is nowhere near as great as it was in the past. The ancestor has not placed any importance on him, or we wouldn't have lost the bidding war for the soul-drawing lotus. Our Thunder family does not lack divine crystals. But don't worry, Senior. The four of us may be nothing compared to Senior right now, but when we break through to Overgod together in the future, we believe that we would have the power to return the favor." The Lightning Brothers stared at Jianchen eagerly. They had said everything that they could, so they only hoped that the overgod before them would be moved by their words and would hand over the soul-drawing lotus. A gleam of light flashed through Jianchen's eyes. After a moment of thought, he sighed gently, "There would be nothing wrong with me giving you the lotus if I didn't need it. Unfortunately, I need it to save a friend of mine, so I can't give it to you." "Senior." The Lightning Brothers began to panic. Just when they wanted to say something else, Jianchen raised his hand to stop them. Jianchen continued, "But you don't have to worry too much. Hasn't your Grand Elder got another 100 years? I'll visit your Thunder family in that time and see whether there's some other way I can save him." The Lightning Brothers hesitated. They naturally did not doubt Jianchen's words about visiting the Thunder family in the future. Even if the Thunder family was a dragon's lair, they would welcome friendly overgods extremely warmly, and they would love to befriend them. What they doubted was whether Jianchen actually had some other way to save the Grand Elder. After all, injuries to the soul could not be healed that easily. "Then we will trouble Senior. The four of us will wait for you to visit the Thunder family." After just a moment of hesitation, the Lightning Brothers clasped their hands. They understood that they could not take the soul-drawing lotus away, so they could only accept his offer for now and keep hoping. Jianchen nodded. Without any more delay, he chased after the people from the Blood Blade sect. Currently, Shi Yu and Mo Yen were making their way through the streets of the royal capital leisurely with their veils on. They seemed to be downtrodden. "Sister Shi Yu, where do you think Patriarch Jianchen has gone?" So much for us looking for him in so much excitement with the Pyrogold. We just wanted to give it to him as soon as possible, yet he has already left the auction center silently." Mo Yen puffed up her cheeks and said unhappily. Clearly, she was annoyed. "If I've guessed correctly, the Patriarch should be pursuing the people from the Blood Blade sect. Mo Yen, let's wait in the royal capital for the Patriarch. I believe he'll return very quickly given his power," Shiyu said to Mo Yen. For some reason, she felt slightly depressed when she learned that Jianchen had left the auction center silently. At this moment, a gleam of light flashed through Shiyu's eyes, and she glared ahead. A few figures flickered at the end of the street. They approached the two of them rapidly. They moved very fast as if they were hovering above the ground. It was to the point that many people missed them completely. They shot through the crowd. "Oh no!" Shiyu thought to herself. Before she could do anything else, the group that shot over had already surrounded her and Mo Yen. There were a total of 6 people. They were all very powerful as they were all gods. In particular, two of them even made Shiyu become extremely stern, as they were lake gods. Hehe, you must be Elder Shiyu of the Tianyuan clan. I am the patriarch of the Yang family, Yang Orn. Greetings, Elder Shiyu. One of the middle-aged men clasped his fist towards Shiyu with a smile. He spoke politely. Patriarch of the Yang family, what are your intentions? Shiyu growled. She could sense that the situation was bad when she glanced at the 6 gods who surrounded Mo Yen and her. The Yang family invites Elder Shiyu to visit. I hope that Elder Shiyu does not turn down the offer, Yang Oren smiled. Chapter 1846. Yang Kai appears. Patriarch Yang, I can only say that you've come at the worst time possible. I'm currently going to meet my patriarch to hand over the supreme quality material I purchased to him. As a result, I am unable to visit your Yang family right now. However, I will tell the patriarch about Patriarch Yang's great invitation. I believe we will be visiting the Yang family soon, Shiyu said while appearing to be composed. She looked around and stressed the 2 words, great invitation. Yang Eoren's face suddenly changed when he heard Shiyu mention that she was just about to meet up with the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan. He became extremely stern and asked, Elder Shiyu, from what you said, is your patriarch present as well? He had not just invited Shiyu to the Yang family for her to visit. If the patriarch happened to be present, things would become difficult. That's right. Our patriarch is in the royal capital, said Shiyu. Your patriarch is in the royal capital? Hehe, Elder Shiyu, do you really think we're so easy to trick? Yang Eoren's brother, Yang Lianxin, sneered. You must be Senior Yang Lianxin. Senior, I really do not understand how I would ever benefit from tricking you all, Shiyu replied with composure. However, she began to worry slightly inside. She hoped that Jianchen could come back sooner. Although she had no idea why the Yang family had invited her to visit, she could tell with a single glance that it definitely was not for any positive reasons from their behavior. Yang Eoren said nothing. The light in his eyes flickered as he analyzed the truth of Shiyu's words. If the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan really was in the royal capital, he truly could not do things forcefully. Jianchen is not in the royal capital. Take the 2 of them to the clan immediately. At this moment, Yang Kai's voice boomed through the heads of the 6 gods from the Yang family. Yang Eoren and the others all became confident after they heard their ancestor's message. Yang Eoren began to smile warmly once again. However, the smile just seemed slightly cold. He said, Elder Shiyu, our ancestor has something important that he wants to see you about. It won't take too much of your time, Elder Shiyu. You can meet up with your patriarch after meeting the ancestor. Yang Eoren turned to his side slightly and made a gesture of invitation as he spoke. All of you get out of the way. We don't care if your ancestor is looking for us for something. If we say no, are you going to use force against our Tianyuan clan? Mo Yen was angry. She planted her hands on her hips and said loudly, causing all the passers-by to look over. However, none of them dared to say anything. There were barely any people who did not know about the Yang family, and there were few people who dared to offend the Yang family. Shiyu pulled Mo Yan's sleeve to tell her not to say anything more. Then she clasped her fist and said, Patriarch, please tell Senior Yang Kai that I'm only an elder of the Tianyuan clan. I can't make any decisions for important matters. Once we meet up with the patriarch, we will visit the Yang family. A gleam of light flickered through Yang Eoren's eyes, and he said, To us, completing the ancestor's mission is of utmost priority. The ancestor has already given us the orders, but Miss Shiyu still wants the ancestor to wait. It really is inconvenient, so please come with us, Miss Shiyu. With that, a powerful pressure emanated from Yang Eoren. It directly enveloped Shiyu and Mo Yen like a mountain crushing down on them. At the same time, Yang Lianxin and the 4 mid-god elders all produced powerful pressures as well. At that moment, these 6 gods had fully unleashed their presences, targeting Shiyu and Mo Yen. Shiyu's face changed suddenly. Although her progress with cultivation had been ungodly during these past few years, she was still only a mid-god. Faced against 4 elders of the same strength and 2 late gods, she was naturally not their opponent. She was suppressed to the point where she could only use 70% of her strength. Spurt. Mo Yan's face directly became sheet white as blood sprayed from her mouth. She had become heavily injured from the tremendous pressure. If the 6 gods had not targeted Shiyu, just the pressure alone was probably enough to claim half of Mo Yan's life, or maybe even all of it. After all, how was Mo Yan supposed to endure the pressure of 6 gods as a mere saint emperor? Sister Yenner. Shiyu cried out and immediately protected her. She stared at the people from the Yang family with intense hatred and called out, "You've actually heard Mo Yan. Do you know just how much the patriarch adores Mo Yan? If anything happens to Sister Mo Yan, the patriarch will never let you off the hook." Yang Oren continued regardless of her words. "Even if that's the case, I still wish to invite Elder Shiyu to come to our Yang family as a guest. Once we end up falling out and fighting here, that girl is so weak, so it'll be your responsibility if she dies in an accident." "You," Shiyu pointed at Yang Aoren. She was so furious that her body trembled. "Alright, I'll go with you. I'd like to see just what the Yang family has planned." In the end, Shiyu still abided. If they really started fighting, she would struggle to protect Shiyu, let alone the fact that she was not their opponent at all. Even Origin Realm experts would become heavily injured or directly die from the shockwaves of battles between gods, let alone Mo Yan, who had not even reached the Origin Realm. Although the royal capital had rules that forbid fighting, these rules only affected regular people. Overgods were naturally not subject to the punishments with their status. Even though Shiyu and Mo Yan had basically been forced to go to the Yang family, the treatment they received was still very great. After entering the Yang family, Shiyu was invited into the guest room by Yang Oren as an esteemed guest. "Please do not blame me for the horrible approach, Elder Shiyu. We had no choice because we had to complete the ancestors' mission. Here is a healing pill, which should be enough for this lady to make a full recovery." In the guest room, Yang Oren apologized to the 2 women. At the same time, he took out a jade bottle and passed it into Mo Yan's hands personally. He behaved like he was extremely sincere. This was because he too understood that if it were not for the fact that the Pyrogold was simply too important to the ancestor would not want to offend the Tianyuan clan either. "Who would take your shitty pills?" Mo Yan did not accept the offer at all. She directly smashed the bottle onto the ground, and it immediately shattered. A round pill rolled out and produced a heavy fragrance. The pill really was of a high grade. Yang Eoren did not mind at all. He knew Mo Yan's identity. She was only the daughter of the patriarch of the Mo clan. She was not anyone important. He had only gifted the pill to her because of the Tianyuan clan. "Thorin, leave for now." Suddenly, a voice rang out in the guest room. A middle-aged man with a resolute face had entered the room at some time. He did not give off any presence at all, making him seem like an ordinary person. He had arrived silently like a ghost. Even Yang Aoren and Shiyu had failed to notice him. Yang Aoren immediately became courteous when he saw the middle-aged man. He bowed towards him before leaving politely. The middle-aged man looked at Shiyu and nodded in satisfaction. "Shiyu, I've heard of you in the past. You've become a god at such a young age, which really does make me feel that the old will be surpassed by the young. Becoming an overgod will be nothing difficult for you if you are given some time. I even envy Jianchen slightly now. He has just founded the Tianyuan clan, and he already possesses such an extraordinary expert. It's just a pity that my Yang family doesn't possess a great clansman like you." "Sir, you must be the ancestor of the Yang family, Senior Yang Kai." Shiyu stood up and clasped her fist at him. However, she did not show any politeness on her face at all. "You're right. I'm Yang Kai." The middle-aged man smiled faintly. Senior Yang Kai sent several gods, and even the patriarch of the Yang family personally came. "I don't think it's as simple as inviting the 2 of us to your clan as guests since you sent so many people," Shiyu said. She could not think of why Yang Kai would do something like this no matter what. There did not seem to be anything valuable on her. The only thing that had some value was the Pyrogold, but with the Yang family's wealth, they could have just bid during the auction if they really did require it. "I'll be honest. I've invited you here as a guest only because I want to make a deal with you." Yang Kai sat down before Shiyu, which made him seem very approachable. However, Shiyu could clearly sense that Yang Kai still possessed a natural, irremovable sense of condescension even though he tried to appear approachable. In particular, his gaze towards her was like he was looking at an ant. A deal? But I don't have anything valuable on me. I am very confused. May I ask just what has caught Senior Yang Kai's eyes? Shiyu felt more and more doubtful. The pyrogold, Yang Kai said. Shiyu's face changed when she heard that. She gripped her space ring instinctively and stared at Yang Kai in complete caution. She said, Senior Yang Kai, I may have to disappoint you. The pyrogold is extremely important to the Patriarch as well, so without his permission, I cannot make any decisions about it by myself. Yang Kai seemed to be expecting Shiyu to say something like that. He responded calmly, the pyrogold is extremely important to me as well. I need it desperately. It's just a pity that I learnt of it a little too late, or I would have never missed it. Since Senior Yang needs the pyrogold, I can talk to my Patriarch about it, said Shiyu. Yang Kai shook his head. You are the one who spent the divine crystals to buy it, and the pyrogold just happens to be on you as well. I can just negotiate with you. Is there any need to find Jianchen? As long as the pyrogold hasn't ended up in his hands, it doesn't belong to him. Yang Kai took out a space ring and said, You spent 100,000 high-grade divine crystals to buy the pyrogold. I have 200,000 high-grade divine crystals here to buy it from you. Chapter 1847. Extremely shameless. Yang Kai's nonchalant tone was also forceful, as if Shiyu would never make it out of the guest room if she did not want to sell the pyrogold. Moreover, as he spoke, the space ring with 200,000 high-grade divine crystals slowly floated over before Shiyu under an invisible force. Shiyu and Mo Yen had both become completely pale as their bodies trembled. Clearly, the ancestor of the Yang family wanted to buy it from them forcefully. Moreover, he was extremely shameless as well. Indeed, they had bought the pyrogold from the Imperial United Merchants Association for the low price of 100,000 high-grade divine crystals, but that was because they had used the prestige of the Tianyuan clan. They had even mentioned Jianchen's name to deter other buyers, so they would pull out for the Tianyuan clan and not take part in the bidding. Otherwise, the price of the pyrogold would have never just been that. It would have gone for 500,000 high-grade divine crystals at the very least. If there was a fierce struggle, it would have even been possible for the pyrogold to go for 1,000,000 high-grade divine crystals. Yet now, not only did Yang Kai, the ancestor of the Yang family, want to forcefully buy it from them, but he had even offered such a low price as well. He was simply completely shameless. Senior Yang, you're a famed expert of the divine kingdom of Pingtian, someone who holds great prestige. Aren't you going too far by abusing the two of us? Shiyu said hoarsely. Her complexion was extremely ugly. You have no sense of shame as well to take advantage of us. So much for being an overgod. I never thought you'd be so shameless. Sister Shiyu, we bought the pyrogold for Patriarch Jianchen. We can't give it to him no matter what, Mo Yen said furiously with a sheet-white face. A cold light flickered through Yang Kai's eyes. He glanced at Mo Yen. His glance was cold and merciless, and it also possessed a glint that was as sharp as swords. Mo Yen immediately felt like her head was exploding from Yang Kai's glance. It made her head throb as if her soul was about to shatter. Her body shuddered uncontrollably, and she directly fell out of the chair and landed onto the ground powerlessly. She constantly vomited blood. Yang Kai's glance had heavily injured Mo Yen. After all, Mo Yen was just too weak. In Yang Kai's eyes, she was even less significant than an ant. Sister Mo Yen. Shiyu's face changed drastically as she cried out. She hurried to help Mo Yen off the floor and fed her a healing pill as quickly as she could. She stared at Yang Kai in complete hatred and roared, Senior Yang, do you know just how important Sister Mo Yen is to the Patriarch? The Patriarch will never let this matter be now that you've hurt her. Do you really want to declare war on the Tianyuan clan? Declare war on the Tianyuan clan? Yang Kai seemed to take it as a joke. He said leisurely, her previous words are already a crime worthy of death. If it were not for Jianchen, do you think this little girl would still be alive? As for the Tianyuan clan, A sliver of disdain appeared in Yang Kai's eyes. He said, "Apart from Jianchen, there really is nothing about the Tianyuan clan that catches my eyes. Moreover, it's impossible for Jianchen to declare war on my Yang family over a mere Saint Emperor because the Tianyuan clan cannot endure a loss like that. Yang Kai, I will remember what you have said today. Our Tianyuan clan will never let this matter just end like this." Shiyu directly referred to Yang Kai by his name as she gritted her teeth. Her heart throbbed as she looked at the pale-faced Mo Yen who had a bloody chest. "Tell me that once you become an overgod, Shiyu, accept the 200,000 high-grade divine crystals. Hand over the pyrogold," Yang Kai said calmly. He really did not treat Shiyu as anything significant. Shiyu said coldly, "I will never." Suddenly, she stopped talking. Her eyes also widened at that moment as fury and intense regret filled her eyes. At that moment, Shiyu discovered that her body had become trapped by a mysterious power. She had become completely immobilized. "Since you won't hand it over yourself, I can only take it for myself then," Yang Kai said nonchalantly. He extended his hand and directly removed the space ring from Shiyu's finger. After rummaging through its contents, he removed the pyrogold before putting the space ring back onto Shiyu's finger. Throughout the entire process, Shiyu remained trapped by the mysterious power. She could only watch Yang Kai take away the pyrogold. "You're not making a loss either by selling the pyrogold for 200,000 high-grade divine crystals." Yang Kai finally smiled slightly when he held the pyrogold. He removed the restrictions on Shiyu and said, "The deal between us is complete now." Shiyu knew that no matter what she said, it was useless now that the entire matter had turned out like this. She was unable to change anything. All she could do was support Mo Yen as she left the Yang family in horrible spirits. After the two of them departed, the patriarch of the Yang family arrived by Yang Kai's side. He asked politely, "Ancestor, have we offended the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan with what we've done?" Yang Kai said, "It's only a deal between Shiyu and me. She definitely did not use the wealth of the Tianyuan clan to buy the pyrogold, so technically, the material is not Jianchen's in the first place. I only purchased it from her before he could get his hands on it, so what can he do even if he learns about everything that had happened? After all, it's only a normal deal between Shiyu and me. Moreover, the pyrogold is only a supreme quality material for forging weapons. It's rather rare, but it's not unique in the saint's world. It's always possible to collect it in the future if he wants to. Jianchen is not a stupid person. He won't fall out with me over a material for forging weapons. Of course, what I've said before are only secondary. The most important point is that I am in desperate need of the pyrogold." Powerful energy shook the surroundings of some desolate plains 50 million kilometers away from the royal capital. It caused the white clouds in the sky to be reduced to fragments. A powerful killing formation had been cast down on the ground. It erupted with all its might as deafening booms rang out from within the killing formation. The people trapped in the killing formation were the four gods from the Blood Blade sect. Currently, they were using everything they had inside the killing formation to attack the formation in an attempt to escape. Just as I had expected. Zheng Fei, you really would use that teleportation disc. Fantastic. Now killing the lot of you will be a piece of cake. For men in azure robes sneered as they stared at the killing formation from the outside. Hua Yongyuan, it's actually you. Impossible, this is impossible. Even we don't know where we'll be transported to when we use the teleportation formation disc. How did you manage to ambush us at the location where we'd appear and cast down such a powerful killing formation? Have you done something to the teleportation formation disc? An elder of the Blood Blade sect cried out from within the killing formation. That's right. We tweaked the teleportation formation disc. It's just a pity that you've learnt of this too late. You four are done for today. The man who had spoken before laughed out loud. Chapter 1848. A deal. The sect has clear rules that we must not attack or kill other members of the sect. If this happens, the offending person will have their cultivation crippled before being sent into the blood flame blade formation as a sacrifice. Hua Yongyuan, do you not know the rules of the sect? An elder trapped in the killing formation yelled out. The elder from the Blood Blade sect known as Hua Yongyuan sneered. Over half of the people from the discipline hall stand on our side. And after killing you lot, the position of sect master that will be determined again in a few months' time will definitely end up on our side. By then, whether it's the discipline hall or the sect master, they will all be from our side. Who will still be daring enough to stand forward and carry out the punishment at that time. As for the ancestor, he only cares about his secluded cultivation. These insignificant matters of the clan won't be enough to alert him. And most importantly, no one else is present apart from us, so even if we kill you here, no one will be here to witness it. Naturally, the sect will not learn about this. Hua Yongyuan smiled sinisterly. As long as he killed the 4 people before him, the balance between the 2 factions of the sect would be broken, and the position of sect master would definitely fall to his side. You're despicable, Hua Yongyuan. Despicable, I say. You'd actually go as far as killing members of the same sect just for the position of sect master. The elder trapped in the killing formation yelled out furiously. Hua Yongyuan laughed aloud and said to the 3 people beside him, "Elders, let's do it. Push the killing formation to maximum capacity. The sooner we finish them off, the less we have to worry about accidents." The people by Hua Yongyuan's side were also elders of the Blood Blade sect. They all nodded in response. Soon afterwards, they arrived at the 4 corners of the killing formation. They used their own cultivation to control the killing formation, pushing the formation to its full power. Even though the formation had not reached the level of overgods, it was still able to erupt with terrifying power under the control of the 4 elders. Instantly, the killing formation began to glow brightly. It was as dazzling as a star. Terrifying pulses of energy churned within as killing intent surged towards the sky. The 4 elders trapped within endured with great difficulty. They unleashed all their power and used various secret techniques, battle skills, and defensive treasures to fend off the formation. However, they only managed to last for less than an hour before they became riddled with wounds and bloodied. They were all extremely heavily injured, and over a dozen defensive formation discs had been destroyed. Are the 4 of us really going to die here today? We're going to die at the hands of someone as despicable as Hua Yongyuan while the sect won't even know about it. I refuse, but what can we do? Our power is nowhere near enough to smash through the killing formation. We don't even know how much longer we can last. It's all my fault. I didn't properly check the teleportation formation disc we were given. I never thought that the formation disc would have been tampered with when I got it from the sect. The 4 elders trapped in the formation gritted their teeth. They were furious as they spoke. They were reluctant to die here. The 4 elders outside the formation all began to smile because they could see that Zheng Fei and the others in the formation could not last for much longer. However, the expressions of Hua Yongyuan and the 3 others changed at this moment. All 4 of them turned their heads towards the direction of the royal capital, and one of them growled, "Oh no, someone is coming. Quick, everyone use your full strength. We have to kill them as soon as possible, or once someone sees this and reports it to the sect, it'll be quite troublesome." The 4 elders nodded sternly. They could sense a powerful presence rapidly approaching the area in the distance. Due to the unsightly nature of the matter, it was best if the person in the distance did not see it at all, even if they were just passing by. However, they had completely underestimated the person's speed. When they had sensed the presence at first, it originated from an extremely distant point. However, in the time they took to talk, which was less than 5 seconds, the owner of the presence had already appeared in view. All 4 of them saw an almost indistinguishable black speck on the horizon at the same time. It moved towards them at a shocking speed. Moreover, as the person drew nearer, his presence became more and more terrifying. It was like a tremendous ocean, crushing down on the surroundings. What speed? Oh no, that person is not a god. He's an overgod. The expressions of Hua Yongyuan and the others changed drastically. The overgod was actually heading in their direction, which made them panic. However, now that they had reached a crucial time to kill Zheng Fei and the others, they could not stop. To no surprise, the overgod who had shot over was Jian Chen. Jian Chen had been using the linear lightning release along the way, pushing his speed to the absolute maximum. Finally, he had crossed the 50 million kilometers and caught up with the elders of the Blood Blade sect. Jian Chen paced through the air and arrived before the formation under the nervous gazes of Hua Yongyuan and the others. His eyes were like swords that were able to penetrate the formation and see what was going on inside. Elder Hua Yongyuan of the Blood Blade sect from the Divine Kingdom of Scarlet Clouds greets Senior. Senior, the four of us are currently eliminating traitors of the sect, so we are unable to greet you. Once we kill the traitors, we will receive you accordingly. I hope that Senior does not take offense, Hua Yongyuan said uneasily. He mentioned his identity as an elder of the Blood Blade sect as soon as possible, as he hoped that his sect's prestige could strike some fear into the Overgod. This was because he felt extremely uneasy about how the Overgod had just glanced at the formation as soon as he arrived. You're from the Blood Blade sect? Jian Chen was quite surprised as he stared at Hua Yongyuan. Hua Yongyuan's face lit up. He said, I am indeed from the Blood Blade sect. Senior, do you happen to have connections with our sect? Jian Chen ignored Hua Yongyuan and others. He looked at the killing formation and said directly, Is the Scarlet Gold or from the Imperial United Merchants Association with you? Jian Chen's voice directly penetrated the formation and Zheng Fei and the others clearly heard his words. The Scarlet Gold or is indeed with us. May I ask who you are, Senior? An elder inside the killing formation asked. His voice was weak. Clearly, he had become powerless. Give me the Scarlet Gold or, and I'll smash through this formation for you. Are you willing to accept this deal? Jian Chen asked. He did not try to communicate discreetly through any communication technique. As a result, Hua Yongyuan and the others heard his words clearly. The expression of all the people in Hua Yongyuan's group changed. They began to panic. Senior, this is a matter of our Blood Blade sect. I hope that Senior won't interfere. If you need the Scarlet Gold or, we'll offer it up to you gladly once we've killed them. Chapter 1849. Jian Chen's Fury. 1. Jian Chen ignored Hua Yongyuan. He stared at the killing formation and said, Are you going to accept the deal or not? If you aren't, I'm not going to force it on you. Senior, the expressions of Hua Yongyuan and the other elders changed. If the formation really was destroyed, as long as just a single elder from Zheng Fei's group made it back to the sect, they would definitely suffer extremely severe punishments. As a matter of fact, their faction might even abandon them altogether. This was because the position of Patriarch was still not with their faction yet. Zheng Fei and the others beamed inside the killing formation. They agreed to Jian Chen's deal frantically. After receiving their reply, Jian Chen did not hesitate at all and grabbed at the air. A huge, resplendent strand of sword chi was condensed. It shot towards the killing formation as a streak of white light. The moment Jian Chen moved, Hua Yongyuan and the four others moved as well. Cold light flashed through their eyes, and they shot up from the ground at the same time. A huge, red blade appeared in their hands simultaneously. It was like the blade had been dyed with blood. Blade formation of the Blood Sun. Hua Yongyuan and the others bellowed out at the same time. Their blades shone with scorching red light as flames began to blaze. The four blood blades crisscrossed, and the scorching red light fused together. It turned into a huge, blood-red sun, radiating with terrifying heat. The four of them had gotten into formation in the shortest amount of time possible. They controlled the sun that they had created, engulfing Jian Chen with blade chi. They would never just watch Jian Chen smash through the formation and allow Zheng Fei and the others to escape. Even if Jian Chen was an overgod, they would still engage in a battle against him without any hesitation. They had suddenly struck out the moment Jian Chen tried to break the formation, delivering their most powerful attack. You overestimate yourselves. Jian Chen snorted coldly and pointed at the empty air. His action possessed the absolute might of an overgod. The most powerful attack from the formation created by the four elders could not even approach Jian Chen. It collapsed from Jian Chen's gesture. The blood-red sun collapsed, and it turned into flames that filled the sky, dyeing the surrounding scarlet. The terrifying heat scorched the ground. Spurt! The four elders vomited blood as they fell out of the flames in horrible conditions. They were pale-faced, and their gazes towards Jianchen were filled with shock. He was definitely not an ordinary overgod. Even if an ordinary overgod could smash through their formation as easily as Jianchen had, they would not have the spare strength to deal a heavy blow to them as well. "You're nowhere near close to the Lightning Brothers," Jianchen said emotionlessly. At the same time, Jianchen's sword chi landed on the killing formation of Hua Yongyuan and the others. With a boom, the killing formation directly shattered and freed Zheng Fei and the other three from inside. Zheng Fei and the others stood there in their own blood. They stared at Jianchen in complete shock. They had also realized that the person before them was an overgod. But soon afterwards, Zheng Fei returned to his senses. He took out the scarlet gold ore as soon as possible and presented it to Jianchen politely. He said, "Senior, Hua Yongyuan and the others have violated the rules of the sect by attempting to murder other members of the sect. If it were not for Senior's help, we would have been doomed today. We hope that Senior can assist us." Zheng Fei asked Jianchen for help. Although the formation had been destroyed, the four of them were heavily injured. They would probably struggle to escape from Hua Yongyuan's group. Jianchen checked the scarlet gold ore before finally letting out a long sigh of relief. He put the rock away and said, "These are the internal affairs of your Blood Blade sect. I will not take part in it, but they're also injured now. Whether you want to run or fight will be up to you." With that, Jianchen shot off into the sky and began making his way back to the royal capital. "Run!" Zheng Fei and the others made up their minds immediately. They fled as quickly as they could. They were more heavily wounded compared to Hua Yongyuan's group, and they were greatly exhausted by the killing formation. They could not put up a fight. Chase them. They can't make it back to the sect. Hua Yongyuan and the others immediately pursued. Jianchen returned to the royal capital of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. He did not stop along the way at all, and he directly arrived outside the auction center. After that, he expanded the senses of his soul in all directions. "I've got the scarlet gold ore again. There were 2 supreme quality materials that appeared in the auction this time that I require for forging the twin swords. All I need is the pyrogold that Shiyu purchased." Jianchen began to expand the senses of his soul to search for Shiyu and Mo Yen from the auction center. He was overjoyed inside. Originally, he had only taken part in the auction for the soul-drawing lotus. He had never thought that he would come across 2 materials for the twin swords, which was a great surprise for him. It was impossible for him to not become excited. "I found them," Jianchen smiled faintly. However, his face changed soon afterwards, and he began to frown. He had become uneasy. In the next moment, he had vanished into the streets as a blur. Shiyu supported Mo Yen. Both of them were sorrowful and dejected as they roamed the streets. Mo Yen had yet to recover from her wounds after ingesting the pill that Shiyu gave her, but her condition had been stabilized and no longer worsened. "Sob, sob, sob, Sister Shiyu. The pyrogold that Patriarch Jianchen needs has been taken away by the overgod of the Yang family. What do you think we should do? The thing that we bought after so much trouble for Patriarch Jianchen has been taken away just like that. So, they've gone overboard, they've gone overboard." Mo Yan's face was frighteningly pale. She sobbed painfully as her weakness was clear through her voice. She was extremely haggard. Shiyu's face was extremely sunken. Her eyes were terrifyingly cold. She said, "We can only wait for the Patriarch to get back, so he can make a decision about this matter. However, I will remember what has happened today. I will never let the Yang family go once I become an overgod." A white figure appeared at the end of the street after Shiyu had finished talking. He was clearly several thousand meters away from Shiyu and Mo Yen, but after he took a single step, he directly appeared before the 2 girls. He moved so quickly that it seemed like he had basically teleported. "What happened? Mo Yen, you're injured. Who hurt you?" Jianchen stared at Mo Yen closely as he growled. His voice was filled with intense fury, and his gaze was even more terrifying. His eyes shone with shocking light that was filled with killing intent. "Patriarch Jianchen." Mo Yen burst into tears when she saw the person who had appeared before her. She clung onto Jianchen tightly as tears poured down her cheeks. At this moment, Tea was as if she had released all the grievances that she had experienced, so she cried extremely painfully. Jian Chen held Mo Yen gently as he inspected her injuries carefully. His face darkened more and more, becoming more and more terrifying. He glared at Shiyu and snorted coldly, "Tell me what happened." Who hurt Mo Yen? The current Jian Chen was like an angered tiger. The cold killing intent he gave off made people shiver. He was extremely terrifying. Chapter 1850, Jian Chen's Fury, 2. Patriarch, it's the Yang family. She did not hide anything. She told him exactly what had happened. She spoke in great detail, and whenever she mentioned Yang Kai, she would grit her teeth in much anger. Yang Kai? Jian Chen murmured. Anger rose up within him as a powerful killing intent began to build up in his heart. Originally, the young master of the Yang family, Yang Tai, had provoked him time and time again, going overboard on some matters. Jian Chen was unwilling to become hostile with the Yang family when he considered how they belonged to the same divine kingdom. As a result, he only cut off Yang Tai's arm in the inn and left his life intact. However, he had never expected that just a few days later, Yang Kai, the ancestor of the Yang family and a mighty late overgod, would do such shameless things. Patriarch Jian Chen, Yang Kai has simply gone too far. The pyrogold was purchased by Sister Shiyu and me for you, but he stole it in the end. Sob sob. He has gone too far. He's using the fact that he's an overgod to bully me and Sister Shiyu just because we're not as strong as him. Patriarch Jian Chen, now that the pyrogold is gone, what do we do? What do we do? Sob sob sob. Mo Yen cried painfully. Her body trembled in Jian Chen's arms. She felt wronged. Coupled with the fact that she was too injured, her violent emotions had triggered her wounds. She vomited a mouthful of blood and dyed Jian Chen's robes red. Jian Chen removed a healing pill he had obtained from God King Duanmu's dwelling from his space ring with a sunken face and fed it to Mo Yen gently. He said, "Let's go to the Yang family. I'd like to see just how arrogant Yang Kai is." Jian Chen spoke icily. Anyone could sense the heavy killing intent in his words. This time, he had truly been angered. In other words, he was out to kill. Very soon, Shiyu and Mo Yen arrived before the Yang family again, this time with Jian Chen. Standing at the entrance, Jian Chen directly called out, "Yang Kai, get your ass out here." Jian Chen's voice was thunderous. It formed a visible sound wave that spread out in all directions, and it basically spread across half of the royal capital. Jian Chen condensed a resplendent sword qi in his hand as he said these words. It shone brightly as it shot forth, landing mercilessly on the main entrance of the Yang family. Boom! The huge estate of the Yang family shook violently with a deafening boom. Formations upon formations appeared and trembled, engulfing the entire clan. The estate was built by the Yang family themselves. Although the protective formations were not connected to the formations of the royal capital, they had still reached the level of overgods, so it completely withstood Jian Chen's attack. The boom also rang across almost half of the city. Everyone could clearly hear the disturbance generated by the surging energy ripples. The royal capital was no longer at peace. Countless people looked towards the Yang family as they discussed with great interest. In the commander's estate, Xian Dou's eyes narrowed as he was guiding Xian Ru's cultivation. He suddenly turned his head towards where the Yang family was and frowned. He murmured, "Why is Jian Chen attacking the Yang family? Looking at how murderous he seems to possess deep hate for them." "Grandfather, what is happening?" Xian Ru also became surprised and doubtful. She looked in the Yang family's direction. She was not wearing her veil right now. She seemed very gentle and well-educated. She was just like the young lady of a large clan. However, her beauty was extraordinary as well, and it was enough to rival the moon. "Ru, stay within the estate. I must pay a visit," Xian Dou said to Xian Ru. His gaze was filled with adoration when he looked at her. At the same time, all the overgod clans in the royal capital began to pay attention to the Yang family. Even though the overgods did not visit the Yang family personally, they had all sent the senses of their soul over to pay close attention. The guards of the royal capital naturally discovered that a conflict was occurring at the Yang family. Someone wanted to fight in the royal capital, so they had broken its rules. However, none of them dared to act recklessly. They all continued their patrols like nothing was happening. They just went about doing what they were supposed to do. They would make detours around the territory of the Yang family purposefully. The entire Yang family was disturbed. Figures flickered inside, and in the blink of an eye, a large group of people had gathered at the entrance. All the elders were present, as well as many deities. The person at the very front was the patriarch of the Yang family, Yang Oren. All of them were stern. "It's you. It's actually you. How dare you? You've actually come to our Yang family. Father, it was he who cut off my arm. He was the one who killed Elder Lu. You have to capture him. He can't escape." Yang Tai also ran over to see what was going on. He recognized Jian Chen with a single glance and leapt up in surprise, yelling as he pointed at Jian Chen. The only difference with him now was that he had recovered his severed arm. "Shut up." Yang Oren snorted coldly as he glared at Yang Tai, forcefully shutting up Yang Tai before he could say anything more. Quite a few elders in the surroundings stared at Yang Tai like they were looking at an idiot. They all secretly cursed that Yang Tai was even more stupid than a pig. "I was wondering who it was. Looks like it's Patriarch Jian Chen of the Tian Yuan clan. You sure are imposing," a confident voice rang out. Yang Kai made his way over in the air step by step. His face was quite ugly. Clearly, the situation had slightly surpassed his expectations. He had indeed purchased Jian Chen's pyrogold from Shiyu forcefully, but he believed that Jian Chen would only come to talk about it, so he would have many methods to handle the situation. He had never expected Jian Chen to show no respect for his authority at all, directly attacking his clan. He Yang Kai was a late overgod after all. Who was willing to offend a late overgod over a piece of pyrogold that was only worth a few 100,000 divine crystals? All the people in the Yang family were shocked when they heard that he was the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan. Even Yang Tai became stunned. His face became filled with some confusion, as he found it rather difficult to believe. Very few people had seen the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan before. As a matter of fact, no one aside from Yang Kai in the Yang family would be able to recognize him. This was because Jian Chen had risen to fame too recently. Information regarding his appearance and characteristics had yet to spread completely, so they were naturally unable to identify Jian Chen. However, the name Jian Chen, the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan, had even spread to neighboring divine kingdoms, let alone the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Everyone knew his name, and he had already become a well-known figure. "No matter how imposing I am, I can never be as imposing as you, Yang Kai. You're a mighty overgod, yet you would go far as to do something as despicable as this," Jian Chen sneered. "I'm despicable? Why do you say that, Jian Chen? If you don't give me a satisfactory reply today, I will not drop the matter of you offending the Yang family," Yang Kai said with a sunken face. "You don't even want to own up to it? Let me ask you, did you take my pyrogold?" Jian Chen said sharply as he emanated with a threatening presence. Chapter 1851. Complete disrespect. Yang Kai snorted coldly. "Jian Chen, the pyrogold was clearly Shiyu's. I only bought it from her, so since when did it become yours?" Jian Chen sneered. He said icily, "The pyrogold was one of the items I ordered the elders in the clan to collect. From the moment Shiyu purchased the pyrogold, it had become mine. Even if you wanted to buy it from Shiyu, you need my permission. And most importantly, did Shiyu ever agree to selling it to you?" "Patriarch, I said that the pyrogold belonged to you before, but Senior Yang just refused to listen. Instead, he forcefully took it from me. Is that any different from stealing?" Shiyu gnashed her teeth from behind Jian Chen. Yang Kai's face immediately sank when Shiyu compared him to a thief. He glared at Shiyu and a cold light flickered through his eyes. He said, "You bought the pyrogold for 100,000 high-grade divine crystals, while I bought it from you for 200,000. Shiyu, did you accept the 200,000 divine crystals or not? If you did take it, how can you say I took it forcefully?" Yang Kai stared at Jian Chen again, and he said furiously, Jianchen, considering the fact that we're both overgods of the same divine kingdom, I don't want to become enemies with you, but do pay attention to what you say. If you want to spew lies, don't blame me for being impolite. For being impolite? Jianchen sniggered. Killing intent shone in his eyes as he said coldly, Yang Kai, I should be the one who says that. If you don't give me a satisfactory explanation, don't blame me for being impolite towards you lot. The argument between the two of them grew more and more intense. It seemed like they were about to start fighting. Shi Yu and Mo Yen became nervous. They were afraid that Jianchen would not be Yang Kai's opponent when they began to fight. On the other hand, the people from the Yang family watched on eagerly. They wished to see the two overgods fight, as they had great confidence in their ancestor. After all, one of them was a late overgod who had made a name for himself many years ago. Although the other person grasped the laws of the sword, which possessed great offensive powers, he was only someone that had appeared recently. Brother Jianchen, Brother Yang Kai, please calm down. With your statuses, it's just not worth it to get so angry over a mere piece of material. At this moment, Xian Dou arrived. He stood between the two of them. He had come to calm both of them down. Although he was not on any particular terms with the Yang family, both Jianchen and Yang Kai were peak experts of the Divine Kingdom. They were both extremely important, where the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian would suffer if anything happened to either one of them. As a result, he simply had to come and break up the fight when considering the greater good. However, both of them had been angered. Xian Dou's actions were clearly useless. Jianchen accepted the space ring with the 200,000 high-grade divine crystals from Shiyu. He tossed it at Yang Kai coldly and said, Elder Shiyu has said it already. She never agreed to the deal. You forcefully took the pyrogold away with your superior strength. Yang Kai, here are your 200,000 high-grade divine crystals. Hand over the pyrogold. Jianchen spoke extremely forcefully, leaving no room for negotiation. He had revealed his determination to obtain the pyrogold. The space ring with the divine crystals crossed through the air in a perfectly parabolic curve towards Yang Kai. A gleam of light flashed through Yang Kai's eyes. He forcefully stopped the space ring before him, leaving it in the air with an invisible force. He took a step forwards and his presence surged. He called out coldly, the deal has been completed. It doesn't matter what you say. You can't just reverse it because you want to. Brother Yang Kai, Brother Jianchen, wouldn't it become a complete joke if the two of you began fighting over a piece of pyrogold that isn't worth that much with your statuses? Why don't you both just take a step back? Do it for me, said Xian Dou. Although he had no good impression of Yang Kai, he had to stop the two of them from fighting for the Divine Kingdom's sake. Since Commander Xian has put it like that, I'll do it for him and take a step back, said Jianchen. Yang Kai's complexion recovered when he heard that. He understood that Jianchen was ready to come to terms when he heard those words. He could not help but become secretly complacent. It looked like the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan really was not bold enough to take him on in the end. However, Jianchen's next words caused Yang Kai's face to freeze. First, I can give you the pyrogold, but you must buy it for 20 blocks of high-grade divine crystal, Jianchen said nonchalantly. What? 20 blocks of high-grade divine crystal? Aren't you too greedy? You actually want us to pay 20 blocks of high-grade divine crystal for a piece of pyrogold you bought for 100,000 high-grade divine crystals? Before Yang Kai could say anything, Yang Oren had already cried out. He was furious. A piece of divine crystal was the size of a thumb, a centimeter in width, length, and depth. A block of divine crystal, on the other hand, was a meter in width, length, and depth, so it was equivalent to 1 million divine crystals. 20 blocks of high-grade divine crystal was equivalent to 20 million high-grade divine crystals. The eyes of everyone from the Yang family widened. He wanted to sell the pyrogold he had purchased for 100,000 high-grade divine crystals for 20 million. They all found it to be unbelievable. They doubted what they had just heard. Xian Dou was surprised as well. He smiled bitterly, as he felt very helpless about the situation. Yang Kai began to laugh from his anger. 20 blocks of high-grade divine crystal? Jianchen, are you dreaming? And seeing that you said first, There must be something else. Why don't you tell us? Jianchen looked at Mo Yen, who stood behind him. Finally, a sliver of gentleness appeared in his cold eyes. However, his voice remained cold and he said, I have always treated Mo Yen as my younger sister, but she has been hurt by someone now. I will point my sword at whoever laid their hands on her. Towards the end, Jianchen's gaze became extremely shocking. His eyes were murderous. However, he also felt extremely strange inside when he said that he treated Mo Yen as his younger sister, as Mo Yen was probably several hundred years, or even several thousand years older than him. Mo Yen also looked at Jianchen. She stared at his back at a loss. Clearly, she was still struggling to accept that. And I had thought I was Patriarch Jianchen's savior. Since when did I become his younger sister? Mo Yen wondered inside. However, she felt her heart warm up. Her patriarch, Jianchen, was actually standing up to a late overgod because of her. Even many direct descendants from overgod clans would not be able to enjoy such treatment. Yang Kai laughed at the sky. He laughed wildly as his presence flooded the surroundings. His clothes fluttered despite the absence of wind. He was extremely furious. You'll point your sword at whoever harms your sister? Jianchen, do you really think I fear you? I was the one who hurt your sister. I'd like to see what you'll do to me. Yang Kai laughed aloud as battle intent surged from him. Let alone 20 blocks of high-grade divine crystal, you won't even be getting a single block from here. As for you so-called sister, so what if I've harmed her? If it weren't for the God King who saved you from God King Duanmu's dwelling, do you really think I'd treat you with even the slightest bit of importance? Yang Kai glared at Jianchen arrogantly. He really did not treat Jianchen as someone important. Jianchen did not argue back. He looked at Xian Dou and said, Commander Xian, please look after Mo Yen and Shiyu for me. Xian Dou sighed gently. Now that the situation had developed to this point, he knew that it was impossible to avoid a battle between Jianchen and Yang Kai. He said, Brother Jianchen, Brother Yang Kai, don't go too far. Xian Dou arrived before Mo Yen and Shiyu to protect the two of them. Chapter 1852, a duel between the powerful. Since they were under Xian Dou's care, Jianchen no longer had to worry about them. Immediately, Jianchen became fearless. Jianchen began to walk, gradually approaching the estate of the Yang family. At the same time, he emitted a surging presence. With each step, his presence grew stronger and stronger. It was enough to shock the world around him. In the end, it became something akin to a huge sword that had landed on the buildings, possessing great might. The protective formations of the Yang family appeared, engulfing the entire clan. However, at this moment, the powerful defensive formation that was enough to stop the attacks of overgods actually began to tremble slightly under Jianchen's tremendous presence. Although the formation was only trembling gently, being nowhere close to shattering, it was only Jianchen's presence that had made all of this happen. Just his presence alone had shaken up the formations of the Yang family. This was more than enough to demonstrate Jianchen's strength. Xian Dou, who protected Shiyu and Mo Yen, changed in expression. He stared at Jianchen in shock. His understanding of Jianchen's strength was limited to when he defeated Weiner Yen. However, only now did he suddenly realize that Jianchen's strength had grown to such a level. Yang Kai, who hovered within the estate, also narrowed his eyes. He finally became slightly stern. The patriarch of the Tianyuan clan is so powerful. Looking at his presence, the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan must have reached late overgod. He is no longer any weaker than Yang Kai, a late overgod who has comprehended the laws of the sword. Looks like Yang Kai has provoked a powerful enemy. The patriarch of the Tianyuan clan has actually grown to have such strength. He cannot be provoked no matter what. Several powerful senses of the soul gathered together. When they came in contact with each other, they began to converse. The disturbance at the Yang family had raised the attention of all the overgods in the royal capital. Although they had not personally come, they had been observing the entire situation for quite a while now with the senses of their soul. Jianchen's presence climbed rapidly. He completely unleashed his level of comprehension that was on par with late overgods. he said coldly. Yang Kai, it really isn't much for you to take my pyrogold. Pyrogold may be a supreme quality material, but it's not unique in the saint's world. If you were willing to pay a little, I could have let you have it. However, you never, ever should have touched my sister Mo Yen. She's the patriarch of the Mo clan's daughter, not your sister. Jian Qin, are you really going to treat me as an enemy because of a mere saint emperor? I've shown you more than enough respect. If it were not for the Tianyuan clan, just her insults to me would have cost her her life. It would be impossible for her to still be alive right now, Yang Kai growled emotionlessly. A mere saint emperor? Cost her her life? Jian Qin sneered. Right now, I will let you know what kind of consequences you have to bear for touching the mere saint emperor you speak of. Suddenly, Jian Qin exploded with blinding light. He seemed to have become a miniature sun. He wielded the startling rainbow sword that was filled with destructive chaotic force on the inside while being covered with the powers of the laws of the sword on the outside. He stabbed at the Yang family's buildings. Yang Kai's face was extremely sunken. He snorted coldly and appeared outside the protective formations of the estate. A sword had also appeared in his hand, shining with blinding, golden light. He swung the sword, and the power of laws surged, turning into a pillar of golden light that headed towards Jian Qin. Even though Yang Kai used the sword, he had not comprehended the laws of the sword. Rather, he comprehended the laws of metal. Boom! The collision of the two attacks was deafening. Terrifying ripples of energy wreaked havoc in the surroundings, directly dispersing the clouds. Even the protective formations of the Yang family shook violently after enduring the shockwaves. Inscriptions of formations appeared within the royal capital as well, forming an indestructible wall of defense for the entire city. The defensive formations of the royal capital were on the level of god kings. The shockwaves from Jian Qin and Yang Kai's battle did not even manage to make it tremble. With the formation protecting the city, even if Jian Qin and Yang Kai engaged in a devastating battle here, they would not be able to even leave a scratch on the city. Only the formations of the Yang family estate were on the level of overgods, as they were not connected to the formations of the city. Jian Qin staggered a few steps back. In his clash with Yang Kai, he had clearly lost the upper hand. However, the presence he gave off only grew stronger and stronger. He seemed like a divine sword. Yang Kai remained in the air. His face was cold. He acted like his first clash with Jian Qin was nothing, as if it were only a casual attack. The person known as the greatest expert below God King in the divine kingdom of Pingtian is only so much, Jian Qin said coldly. He fused with his sword and radiated with shocking sword chi. He seemed to shoot off like an arrow, killing his way towards Yang Kai aggressively. Yang Kai glanced at the shaking formations of the Yang family below him. He did not continue his battle with Jian Qin. Instead, he flew away from the royal capital. Jian Qin naturally understood Yang Kai's intentions. He did not want to damage the Yang family during the battle, so he chose to fight outside the city. Jian Qin did not hesitate. With a thought, the startling rainbow sword appeared beneath his feet. With his arms crossed, he rode the sword away, disappearing from the royal capital as a streak of light. After Jian Qin and Yang Kai vanished, all the overgod ancestors who usually spent their time in seclusion and rarely made public appearances chose to emerge from their clans without any hesitation at all. They followed Jian Qin and Yang Kai and headed outside of the city by hovering along the ground. The defensive formations within the city restricted the senses of their soul. Once Jian Qin and Yang Kai left the city, they would have left the range that the senses of their souls could encapsulate as well. As a result, they were forced to emerge from seclusion. The patriarch of the Tianyuan clan seems to have lost the upper hand. Looks like he's still a little worse than Yang Kai. What do you know? Yang Kai loves his pride and dignity. He knew that many of us were watching in secret. He didn't want to embarrass himself, so he secretly used a battle skill. However, because he did not use the full might of the battle skill, you all failed to sense it. The patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jian Qin, lost the upper hand because he did not use a battle skill like Yang Kai. Instead, he did not use any tricks at all, In other words, the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan seems to have fallen for Yang Kai's scheme. That's indeed the case. However, if he didn't do that, Yang Kai probably wouldn't have been able to gain an upper hand at all. He would have only been able to match Jian Qin at most. After all, the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan is an overgod who has comprehended the laws of the sword. He possesses an advantage in terms of laws. However, why do I feel that the patriarch's cultivation level is a little low? It doesn't even seem like he has reached overgod. I remember back in God King Duanmu's dwelling, the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan had reached early or mid-overgod in terms of comprehension, while his cultivation level remained the same as a god. After so many years, his comprehension level has reached late overgod, but his cultivation level remains at the level of a god. I can never understand why this is the case. Chapter 1853. Yang Kai's defeat. All the overgods who hurried out of the city communicated with each other through their souls. Whenever they mentioned Jian Qin, they would basically be filled with caution and fear. Under Xiando's lead, Mo Yen and Shiyu were also taken out from the city. None of them were willing to miss the battle between the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jian Qin, and the ancestor of the Yang family, Yang Kai. Quite a few gods had followed them out of the city. It was not only the overgods. Their faces were all filled with excitement and eagerness. To them, battles between overgods were extremely rare. All they needed to do was watch, and they would have the opportunity to comprehend the laws of overgods, benefiting them greatly. They could even make some minor breakthroughs and reach a new height in strength. There was a wasteland 100 kilometers from the royal capital. Booms already roared through the skies as powerful pulses of energy collided rapidly. They wreaked havoc in the region, forming a terrifying storm. Jian Qin and Yang Kai had already begun their intense fight. Dazzling light surrounded both of them. A protective light formed from the laws of the sword surrounded one of them. Sword chi permeated his surroundings as he shot out sharp sword chi. Golden light surrounded the other person. It was extremely resplendent. He controlled the laws of metal among the 5 elements, which turned into huge strands of sword chi. It was a shocking and extremely imposing sight. Jian Qin, your strength really has grown quite a lot after a few dozen years. No wonder you're so arrogant. However, although you've reached late overgod in terms of comprehension, which is comparable to me, it's a pity that your cultivation level is lacking. I'll show you my true strength now, Yang Kai bellowed out. The sword in his hand shone with bright, golden light as his origin energy as a late overgod fused with the laws of metal, creating a 300-meter-long golden sword chi. At this moment, all the overgods had arrived from the royal capital. All of them stood in the distance as they watched the duel between the powerful. All of them were extremely cautious. That's Yang Kai's 7th grade battle skill of the Truth Tier, Great Adamant Sword Chi. I never thought Yang Kai would use such a powerful battle skill right from the start, a middle-aged man said in surprise from the distance. He was an overgod of the royal capital. Jian Qin has managed to pressure Yang Kai. Although Jian Qin is lacking slightly in terms of his cultivation, he can make it up slightly with the advantages of the laws of the sword. As a result, he has reduced the difference in strength between him and Yang Kai. If Yang Kai doesn't want to end the battle quickly with a battle skill, they can probably fight for days and nights without achieving an outcome, Xiando explained from nearby. Mo Yen and Shiyu currently stood behind him. The 2 girls seemed worried. Mo Yan's pale face took a rapid turn for the better now. She had ingested a healing pill from Jian Qin earlier, and recently, Xiando had given her another pill of quite a high grade. Her condition improved rapidly under the effects of the 2 pills. Daluo sword. Jian Qin did not shy away from Yang Kai's battle skill. He used a sword technique and also produced a golden sword chi. The golden sword chi was tiny. It was less than 3 meters in length, far smaller than Yang Kai's sword chi that stretched for hundreds of meters. Boom. However, when the 2 sword chi collided, they actually dispersed together with a deafening sound, scattering into the surroundings as residual sword chi. Terrifying ripples of energy caused the surrounding space to actually twist slightly. Even after using a 7th grade battle skill of the Truth Tier, Yang Kai only managed to reach a stalemate with Jian Chen's Daluo sword in this clash. Tai sword technique. Jian Chen bellowed out. The startling rainbow sword in his hand erupted with sword chi. The white light engulfed him, and he and the sword seemed to have fused together. It was like they had managed to achieve true fusion. They turned into a streak of light and dove into the violent ripples of energy, shooting towards Yang Kai aggressively. Not only did Jian Chen do everything quickly, but he moved extraordinarily fast as well, completely catching Yang Kai off guard. He used the Tai sword technique right after using the Daluo sword. By the time Yang Kai had sensed it all, Jian Chen had already arrived near Yang Kai as a ball of light. Indestructible body of gold. Yang Kai was extremely experienced in battle as well. As he called out, his body became as resplendent as gold. The laws of metal formed powerful layers around him to protect him such that he seemed to have equipped a set of glistening armor at that moment. He seemed quite impressive. Jian Chen and the startling rainbow sword stabbed at Yang Kai together. The powerful sword chi clashed with Yang Kai's laws of metal. In the end, the laws of the sword still managed to gain the upper hand. Yang Kai's layers of laws of metal collapsed one by one under the powerful sword chi. The indestructible body of gold failed to last even a second. The startling rainbow sword punched a fist-sized hole through it, and under Jian Chen's control, the sword stabbed into the hole he created. Spurt! Blood splashed into the air. The startling rainbow sword penetrated Yang Kai's body, and its tip directly emerged from Yang Kai's back as it dripped with blood. It continued to shine with beautiful light. Clearly, it had not lost any power at all. Yang Kai's gaze became terrifyingly cold. Anger surged from his heart, and at the same time, the golden sword in his hand directly stabbed into Jian Chen's chest with the laws of metal. It also penetrated Jian Chen. This was a powerful strike from a late overgod. Although Jian Chen had already pushed his chaotic body to the limits, he was unable to stop the attack. Jian Chen's face did not change. He did not pay any attention to the sword that had stabbed through his chest. All he did was secretly circulate his chaotic force so that he could heal as soon as possible. It was also at this moment that the brutal powers of the laws of metal suddenly erupted within Jian Chen's body. It rampaged about like a wild horse as it destroyed the signs of life within him. Jian Chen did not panic. He gathered the power of the laws of the sword to fend off the laws of metal within him. At the same time, he formed another seal with his left hand, condensing a second strand of Daluo sword in a short instance before shooting it at Yang Kai. Divine Finger of the Void-Crushing Meteor. At the same time, Yang Kai used a battle skill. He directly extended a golden finger. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed when he was faced with the finger. Yang Kai's finger seemed to have become a huge meteor to him, crushing towards him with incomparable speed. Wherever the meteor passed by, space seemed to show signs of being crushed and destroyed. The power of the finger was extraordinary. It shook the surroundings, and it seemed to possess the power of stars. It was extremely terrifying. The expressions of the observing overgods all changed when they saw the finger. That's the 8th grade truth tier battle skill, Divine Finger of the Void-Crushing Meteor. I never thought Yang Kai would have managed to grasp this battle skill and be able to use it. This battle skill is one collected by the Divine King. It's stored in the Royal Book collection. Only overgods who have made a certain level of contribution to the kingdom will have the opportunity to comprehend it. It's just a pity that although we've tried to comprehend it, we've yet to comprehend the battle skill's essence, so we're unable to use it. Even the battle skills used by a few god kings are at the 8th grade. With a great boom, the ground shook for a total of 3 times. Jian Chen's Daluo sword directly dispersed when it landed on Yang Kai's finger. Jian Chen became injured from the attack. He vomited blood and struck the ground heavily. However, he rose back up into the sky like nothing had happened soon afterwards. His presence was powerful, and his battle intent was even more shocking than before. There was not the slightest hint of haggardness on his face. Instead, he grew bolder and bolder as he fought. It was as if he was not injured at all. Yang Kai bathed in the golden light as he used his laws of metal to eliminate the laws of the sword within him. When he saw Jianchen rise up in an extremely courageous fashion, his eyes suddenly narrowed. He was extremely shocked inside. How is this possible? The divine finger of void-crushing meteor is nothing to laugh at. He must be heavily injured after taking on that strike. How can he act like he's completely fine? Yang Kai found this to be unbelievable. This was because he believed Jianchen would become incapacitated after taking on the battle skill because the battle skill was truly extremely powerful. In ordinary situations, only God Kings could grasp it. However, the situation was the exact opposite. Even though Jianchen was in a horrible shape, with blood dripping from his mouth, his eyes shone brightly, and his presence roared. He did not seem like he was injured at all. However, Yang Kai's face turned cold soon afterwards. Fierce light shone in his eyes. He gripped his sword tightly with his right hand as origin energy erupted from it. Surrounded by the laws of metal, he swung his sword as hard as he could at Jianchen. It was also at this moment that Jianchen suddenly turned into a bolt of lightning. He crossed the distance in a flash, arriving before Yang Kai. He really had reached a speed that surpassed the reaction time of all the gods. Linear lightning release. Yang Kai's eyes widened. His face was filled with shock as Jianchen directly passed through his body, sword and all. Jianchen created a bowl-sized hole in Yang Kai's chest. In the distance, all the overgods, including Xiando, as well as the gods who had gathered here later, witnessed what had happened. They all become completely stunned as shock flooded their faces. What did they just see? They saw Jianchen's huge body directly pass through Yang Kai's body like a sword, and he only left a bowl-sized hole behind. What happened just then had surpassed the limits of many people's understanding. They found it to be unbelievable because a bowl-sized hole was not even the size of a human head. How could a body fit through that? Spurt! Yang Kai spewed blood from his mouth, which turned into a bloody mist that drifted down slowly. This was the blood of a late overgod. Every single droplet gave off a pulse of energy. Chapter 1854. A God King intervenes. Yang Kai's face was pale. Only he understood the terror of Jianchen's previous strike. Jianchen had passed through his body as lightning, obliterating his organs, and reducing large regions of his ribs into powder. He was injured extremely heavily. He turned around with great difficulty. Yang Kai's eyes were filled with regret as he stared at the distant Jianchen in anger and humiliation. He said, "What a powerful battle skill. What is it?" "The linear lightning release." Jianchen responded coldly. He made his way through the air with the startling rainbow sword, making his way towards Yang Kai step by step. "The linear lightning release, the linear lightning release. It really is like lightning, unbelievably fast," Yang Kai murmured. He was unwilling to accept the outcome of their battle. It was not because he feared defeat. Rather, he just could not let himself, an expert who had been known as the greatest expert below God King in the divine kingdom of Pingtian, lose to the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan who had only made a name for himself several dozen years ago. Suddenly, a sliver of resolution appeared in Yang Kai's eyes. His gaze towards Jianchen instantly became filled with heavy killing intent. "The battle stops here." At this moment, an ancient voice boomed in the surroundings. It was filled with a might that could not be denied. As the voice rang out, a tremendous and terrifying presence crushed down from the sky. Whether it was Jianchen or Yang Kai, they both felt like they now shouldered a huge mountain before the terrifying presence. They even struggled to move freely. A God King, Jianchen thought, but he did not show any surprise at all. A white-robed old man appeared high in the sky silently. His appearance was nothing special. However, it was the owner of that face with no special features that gave off the tremendous presence, which suppressed Jianchen and Yang Kai. Of course, Jianchen and Yang Kai did not resist either. "Greetings to the Grand Imperial Protector." In the distance, the observing overgods, including Xiando, all bowed at the same time without any exceptions. Their faces were filled with shock. Shi Yu and Mo Yen, who stood behind Xiando, were both surprised. Without any hesitation, the two of them bowed deeply at the old man, greeting him courteously. There were many gods that had gathered behind them. Right now, the entire group had already bowed. All of their eyes burnt with excitement. God kings were supreme experts that rarely ever appeared. Even they, gods, would not necessarily be able to see a god king personally in their entire lifetimes. The Grand Imperial Protector's appearance allowed them to witness a god king's awe, making them feel like they had lived a life with no regrets. Yang Kai calmed down. He bowed at the Grand Imperial Protector stiffly. No matter how regretful he felt, no matter how powerful his killing intent was, he had to suppress it all now. Is this the Grand Imperial Protector? Jianchen raised his head to study the Grand Imperial Protector after bowing. This was the first time he had seen one of the two great god kings of the Divine Kingdom. The Grand Imperial Protector hovered in the sky as he stared at Yang Kai and Jianchen with a deep gaze. He said calmly, "I already know why all of this happened." Yang Kai, return the pyrogold to Jianchen. Grand Imperial Protector, I purchased the pyrogold from an elder of the Tianyuan clan. It already belongs to me, said Yang Kai. His reluctance to return the pyrogold was directly related to his pride. Jianchen understood that his fight with Yang Kai had reached a conclusion now that the Grand Imperial Protector was here. As a result, he put the startling rainbow sword away and secretly began to circulate his chaotic force to heal. He stared at Yang Kai coldly with his arms crossed. The Grand Imperial Protector looked at Yang Kai deeply from above. He said, "You two are the pillars of the Divine Kingdom. If you keep on making trouble like this, it will be the Divine Kingdom that has to bear any losses. The Empyrean demon cult is about to overrun the Divine Kingdom of 3 cauldrons soon, and there's only a Divine Kingdom of 9 stars that separates us from them. Our kingdom is in danger, so we must not have internal strife at a time like this and weaken ourselves." The Grand Imperial Protector took out an embroidered box from his space ring and said, "I just happen to have a piece of pyrogold on me. Yang Kai, I'll gift the pyrogold to you, so you'll have all the materials to forge your supreme quality saint artifact. Give the piece in your hands right now to Jianchen." This time, the Grand Imperial Protector directly told him to hand it over to Jianchen and not return it to Jianchen. As a result, Yang Kai had a way out of the situation without disgracing himself. Yang Kai was a late overgod after all. He was an important pillar to the kingdom, so even someone as great as the Grand Imperial Protector had to show him some respect, particularly in a period where the threat of the Empyrean demon cult loomed. At a time like this, a late overgod was several times more important. Yang Kai hesitated slightly before accepting the Grand Imperial Protector's pyrogold in the end. He took out the pyrogold he had taken from Shiyu from his space ring and tossed it to Jianchen. He said coldly, "Jianchen, I'll gift the pyrogold to you because of the Grand Imperial Protector." "It's not a gift. You're returning it to me. Here are your 200,000 high-grade divine crystals." Jianchen stressed seriously and tossed a space ring back at him. Jianchen continued, "The pyrogold is secondary to our fight. The main reason is because you touched my people." Without a single doubt, Jianchen was announcing to the world to never provoke the Tianyuan clan through his words. Yang Kai stared at Jianchen coldly. After snorting, he bowed towards the Grand Imperial Protector again before leaving. He returned to the royal capital with a sunken face. He still had trump cards he had not used, but he knew that this applied to Jianchen as well. At the very least, he still had not used those 2 strands of terrifying sword chi yet. "Jianchen, now that the matter here has been resolved, please come to the royal palace. There are matters that we want to discuss with you." The Grand Imperial Protector dismissed his presence. He seemed to have turned back to an ordinary old man. After saying that to Jianchen, he directly departed, returning to the royal palace. "Brother Jianchen, you really have reached a whole new level of strength after being gone for a while. I never thought that you would possess such daunting strength. You've even defeated Yang Kai." Shendo walked over and spoke warmly. The overgods who had watched on from the distance also came up to talk to Jianchen after hesitating slightly. Fear lingered in all of their eyes. They all understood that from today onwards, There was the Tianyuan clan aside from the Yang family that could be known as one of the most powerful clans in the entire kingdom. Jianchen greeted them before looking towards Shiyu and Mo Yen. Aside from Yang Kai, did anyone else touch you? The overgods from the royal capital all leapt in fright when they heard Jianchen's words. Was he still not satisfied after his battle with Yang Kai? Was he looking to punish other people as well? Immediately, all the overgods began to regard the Tianyuan clan as an existence that could not be provoked. Yang Kai had only injured a mere saint emperor, yet Jianchen engaged in such a furious battle with him. If someone with even greater status had been offended, the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan would basically come for their lives. There's also the patriarch of the Yang family, Yang Oren, Yang Lianxin, and 4 elders. The 6 of them used their presences to hurt Mo Yen, said Shiyu. She resented the Yang family deeply. Since her patriarch was so powerful, there was no reason for her to fear these people anymore. In the distance, the expressions of the elders of the Yang family all changed, starting with Yang Oren. They immediately wanted to flee. How can I let you return unscathed after you've hurt my sister? Jianchen said coldly. He extended his finger a total of 6 times, and 6 strands of resplendent sword chi shot towards the gods who had ganged up on Shiyu and Mo Yen. It punched through their bodies, causing them to wail miserably. They used all the power they had to flee as quickly as they could. Jianchen did not take their lives. He only injured them as a slight punishment. Chapter 1855. A terrifying sea of consciousness. There was a quiet garden that took up an extremely large area within the royal capital. Jianchen, Shiyu, and Mo Yen stayed there temporarily. There were a total of 100 servants who served them in the courtyard. An overgod from the royal capital had eagerly given the courtyard to Jianchen after he learnt that Jianchen had no place to stay in the royal capital. He was extremely enthusiastic. Originally, Jianchen wanted to remain within an inn, but he found it difficult to turn down this overgod's kindness, so he could only settle down in there with Shiyu and Mo Yen. However, he did not accept it as a gift from the overgod. He only planned on staying here temporarily. Jianchen stood in the center of one of the rooms. He had taken the crystal casket that held Kaya out from the bright moon divine hall, placing it onto the floor gently. At the same time, an embroidered box covered with formations appeared in his hand. As he removed the layers of formations, a mysterious presence began to permeate the surroundings. Sensing the presence, the eyes of the 7-colored heaven-devouring beast that lied on the crystal casket immediately lit up. It fluttered its wings as it flew around Jianchen. Its clever little eyes were filled with eagerness. Jianchen stared at Kaya, who laid in the casket. He murmured, "Kaya, you've slept for so long. I hope I can wake you up this time so that you can open your eyes and have a look at the tremendous saint's world." Jianchen slowly removed the lid of the box. An ink-black lotus laid in there quietly. It had a total of 9 petals, and each petal possessed wondrous patterns that seemed to resonate with the world as if the laws of the world were woven into them. The flower was the soul-drawing lotus that Jianchen had managed to purchase from the Imperial United Merchants Association after paying a hefty price. Jianchen removed the lotus from the box carefully and slowly placed it into Kaya's mouth. At the same time, he paid close attention to Kaya's reaction. Jianchen's senses of the soul clearly observed the pitch-black lotus slowly melt in Kaya's mouth. It turned into an inky liquid that Kaya absorbed, and all of it gathered at the location of her soul. 10 minutes later, the lotus vanished from Kaya's mouth. Kaya had completely absorbed the medicinal effects of the lotus. Jianchen stared at Kaya closely as he watched for any responses. The soul-drawing lotus was of quite a high grade among the heavenly resources that could deal with problems of the soul. As a matter of fact, it could be considered as high grade. If it was unable to awaken Kaya, he would really be out of options. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. 15 minutes. Time passed silently. However, Kaya's lack of response worried Jianchen. It was as if the soul-drawing lotus did nothing to her at all, and she was just like before. Right now, in Kaiya's head, within the depths of her sea of consciousness that was impossible for Jianchen to discover, there was a tremendous region. It seemed to be as large as the universe. This was Kaiya's sea of consciousness. If Jianchen could see her sea of consciousness, he would definitely be completely stunned. Kaiya was clearly only a saint emperor, but her sea of consciousness had reached an unbelievable size. It could literally be described as boundless. Let alone god kings that had reached the peak of godhood, but even primordial realm experts would experience an overwhelming uproar if they learnt that she possessed such a large sea of consciousness. Let alone god kings, even those who had reached the primordial realm would only possess a sea of consciousness 1/10 of Kaiya's size. It was also at this moment that a speck of light suddenly appeared in the pitch-black, boundless sea of consciousness. It rapidly expanded, and a few seconds later, it turned into a small sun. It shone with all the colors of the spectrum radiantly, illuminating a small region of the sea of consciousness. After the rainbow ball of light appeared, the sea of consciousness began to tremble gently. Strands of terrifyingly powerful traces of the laws of the world began to expand from the light, emanating in all directions. It seemed to be trying to fill up the entire sea of consciousness. However, the sea of consciousness was simply too vast. The ball of rainbow light was unable to illuminate every corner, so the traces it gave off were naturally nowhere near enough to fill up the entire place. Still, not enough. Suddenly, there was a sigh in the silent sea of consciousness. It was extremely weak. As a matter of fact, it even struggled to string the 3 words together. At the same time, Jianchen became excited because he saw Kaiya's eyes tremble gently as if she was trying to open them. Kaiya, Kaiya, wake up, Jianchen called out emotionally in hopes of waking up Kaiya, who had already remained unconscious for over 100 years. At this moment, Kaiya's lips quivered gently. They moved slowly as if they were struggling to form a few words. Still not enough. These 3 words were extremely quiet, just like a mosquito. Ordinary people would struggle to hear it even if they placed their ears right next to her mouth. However, Jianchen was no ordinary person. Rather, he was a mighty overgod. Even though Kaiya's voice was quiet, he still heard all of her words clearly. Still not enough? What do you mean? Jianchen was surprised and confused. After mouthing the 3 words, Kaiya fell silent again, returning to her previous state. Still not enough? Is a soul-drawing lotus not enough to wake up Kaiya? Jianchen pondered with furrowed eyebrows. However, his eyes widened soon afterwards, as he found the matter to be unbelievable. How is that possible? Even in the saint's world, the soul-drawing lotus is quite an impressive heavenly resource. It's more than enough to heal even godhood experts. Kaiya is just a saint emperor, so how is it not enough to heal her? Jianchen rejected his hypothesis, as it was just too unbelievable. However, he began to hesitate soon afterwards. Uncertainty flooded his face. Finally, he gritted his teeth and removed one of the final stalks of amethyst spiritual bamboo from his space ring despite his reluctance. He extracted the sap and dripped them between Kaiya's eyebrows. If the soul-drawing lotus isn't enough, a droplet of this sap should be enough. The sap contains Xianhuang Qi, so it's worth no less than the soul-drawing lotus in value. It might even be worth more, Jianchen thought. After the sap seeped into Kaiya's head, the rainbow light within the depths of Kaiya's sea of consciousness immediately shone even brighter. At the same time, the traces of the laws of the world expanded some more. The sap was not necessarily useless on Kaiya. Jianchen just needed to use far more of it if he wanted to wake Kaiya up. However, Jianchen did not know about that. Seeing Kaiya's complete lack of response, he could not help but sigh and feel despair. However, his eyes lit up soon afterwards, and he became reinvigorated. He said, "Looks like the sap is useless, so I need a second soul-drawing lotus or other heavenly resources that can heal injuries to the soul. Only then will Kaiya wake up." Jianchen did not fear a shortage of soul-drawing lotus. If one was not enough, he could find a second, a third, or even a fourth. He feared that Kaiya would not respond after absorbing a soul-drawing lotus, so he would have no idea about her condition. If that happened, he would have to choose some other method to try and save Kaya. The seven-colored heaven-devouring beast lied down on the crystal casket again. It seemed dispirited because Jianchen failed to wake Kaya. I better go to the royal palace and ask the divine king. As a god king, the divine king will know much more than any overgod. Let's see if I can learn about any heavenly resources that can heal the soul from him. Jianchen put the crystal casket away and strode out. Chapter 1856. The Divine King. The royal palace of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian was located in the center of the city. It seemed to sit on the heart of the royal capital. Within a radius of 10 kilometers, all pedestrians and carriages were forbidden. It was a forbidden zone that hid countless experts who secretly protected the place. The entrance to the royal palace was always guarded by members of the Royal Divine Army on their flaming three-flamed divine horses. They possessed the prestige of the royal palace. Squads of soldiers from the Royal Divine Army patrolled the interior of the royal palace. They moved around with their heads held high and a firm presence as they patrolled every inch of the palace in a certain formation. The entire royal palace emanated with a ruler's presence. It seemed grand and almost holy. Jianchen directly made his way towards the royal palace. As soon as he stepped into the forbidden zone around the palace, he immediately sensed several dozen senses of the soul basically gather on him simultaneously. Jianchen knew they came from the hidden guards, so he did not conceal his presence. He continued to walk, striding towards the royal palace. However, the owners of the senses seemed to recognize Jianchen as well. They retreated as soon as they came in contact with Jianchen and never appeared again. They allowed Jianchen to approach the royal palace. After being identified, Jianchen entered the royal palace without any obstructions. Two soldiers on their three-flamed divine horses led the way for Jianchen through the royal palace. In the end, he entered a beautiful, fragrant garden. Patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, His Majesty is waiting for you in the royal gardens. We will be dismissing ourselves first. The two soldiers clasped their fists at Jianchen together. They were extremely polite, and they backed off silently. Jianchen moved through the royal gardens alone. The royal gardens were extremely large, and it was filled with various exotic flowers that gave off an exhilarating fragrance. There are origin-gathering flowers. Jianchen's eyes narrowed. He discovered an exotic type of flower that had bloomed facing the sun just like a sunflower. Its existence managed to gather the surrounding origin energy. If people cultivated near the flower, they would be able to progress several times faster. Jianchen had learnt about the origin-gathering flower from Xiando. It was extremely valuable, with basically all demand and no supply. Even many overgods did not possess them. He had never expected to see them in the royal gardens. Moreover, it was not just a single flower. There was over a dozen of them. Jianchen also recognized a few more exotic flowers that rarely appeared on the market aside from the origin-gathering flower. Every single one of them was extraordinary, and they all had their uses. They filled him with great eagerness as he desired them. If I could move the royal gardens to the Tianyuan clan, I'll be able to cultivate a large number of experts before long, Jianchen thought. Just the royal gardens alone was priceless. However, the worst part of it was that the exotic, priceless flowers could only be admired in the royal palace. God kings sure are wealthy, Jianchen sighed emotionally. He admired the flowers as he quickly advanced towards the depths of the gardens. He could vaguely feel a presence in a certain direction. As Jianchen approached it, he saw two white-robed people seated in a pavilion from afar. One of them was an old man with gray hair. His appearance was nothing special. The presence that Jianchen felt came from the old man. The other person was a dignified, middle-aged man. He possessed the presence of a ruler. Even without trying, all his actions made him seem like royalty. He could command respect with simply a stare. Jianchen had seen the ordinary old man before. He was the Grand Imperial Protector. However, when Jianchen saw the middle-aged man, his eyes narrowed suddenly. He was still able to sense an obscure presence from the Grand Imperial Protector. However, Jianchen could not sense anything from the middle-aged man across him. As a matter of fact, if Jianchen closed his eyes, he would not even be able to sense his existence. He seemed to be like air. This left Jianchen greatly shocked. After all, he had reached the level of late overgod in terms of comprehension. His soul was so powerful that even when the Grand Imperial Protector hid his presence, he was confident about detecting a trace of it. However, the middle-aged man clearly did not try to hide his presence, yet Jianchen was unable to sense his existence at all. This divine king is very powerful. He's much more powerful than the Grand Imperial Protector, Jianchen concluded. Jianchen, since you've come, why were you just standing there? Come to sit. The Grand Imperial Protector gestured at Jianchen with a smile. Right now, he seemed very approachable, just like a kind old man. He did not give off the airs of a god king at all. Jianchen made his way over and bowed. Patriarch Jianchen of the Tianyuan clan greets your majesty and the Grand Imperial Protector. The divine king's gaze landed on Jianchen. Just his gaze alone made Jianchen's heart tighten uncontrollably. At that moment, he suddenly felt like all the secrets on him had been revealed to the divine king. Of course, that was only what he felt. It was not what actually happened. However, even with that being the case, Jianchen became much more vigilant. Not only was the divine king more powerful than the Grand Imperial Protector, but he was in fact much more powerful. Suddenly, the divine king smiled. Jianchen immediately felt like he was standing in a spring breeze, as if all the haze in his heart had been blown away. Jianchen, I've heard of you several dozen years ago. I've always been paying attention to you since then. Every day, I anticipated the day that I could meet you personally so that I could properly lay my eyes on the overgod who comprehended the laws of the sword and managed to cause such a great disturbance in God King Duanmu's dwelling. I've finally got to meet you, the divine king smiled. He stared at Jianchen with a strange light before sighing gently. Seeing really is much more than hearing. Who would have thought that the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, the person who caused such a great disturbance in God King Duanmu's dwelling, defeated Formation Master Chanlong, and stood up to Yang Kai, has not even cultivated for 1,000 years. It really is astonishing. Astonishing, I say. Spurt. The Grand Imperial Protector spat out his tea as he stared at the divine king in shock. He said with his tongue tied, Ping, w, what did you say? Jianchen hasn't even cultivated for 1,000 years? Don't joke with me. How can I accept such an unbelievable piece of news? If you don't believe me, you are welcome to ask Jianchen yourself, the divine king said. His gaze towards Jianchen was filled with amazement as if he was studying a great treasure. Jianchen, is that true? Have you really cultivated for less than 1,000 years? The Grand Imperial Protector stared at Jianchen as he spoke in a hurry. This news was simply too frightening. If it made it out, it would be enough to take the 49 Great Plains and the 81 Great Planets of the Saints' world by storm. Countless peak clans and eternal empires would all move out for him. Chapter 1857. The Divine King's Request. It has almost been 1,000 years, Jianchen responded reluctantly. He felt extremely helpless inside. It would be reasonable if others discovered his length of cultivation if his cultivation realm was low. However, he was clearly a late overgod now, yet the divine king still managed to tell from a single glance. It was as if the amount of time he had been cultivating was as transparent as glass before a god king. However, fortunately, the Grand Imperial Protector failed to see through how long he had been cultivating. At the very least, this made Jianchen realize that not all god kings could tell how long he had been cultivating for. Becoming an overgod in less than 1,000 years would definitely take the Saints' world by surprise. Even the prodigies that peak clans invested heavily in would struggle to achieve such a speed of cultivation. What a prodigy! This speed of cultivation might be unprecedented in the Saints' world. I never thought I'd personally witness such a miraculous existence, the Grand Imperial Protector sighed in amazement. His eyes shone as he looked at Jianchen as if he was looking at a great treasure. However, what he did not know was that Jianchen had only been cultivating for roughly 200 years. He said close to 1,000 years instead so that it would not be too shocking. However, even that was enough to amaze the Grand Imperial Protector and the Divine King. Jianchen, with your talent, it's a piece of cake for you to join the eternal Blood Sun Empire of the southern region. If you're willing, even joining the Tian Empire of the central region would not be difficult. You will be able to develop better in such places. Staying in my tiny divine kingdom of Pingtian is burying your talent, the Divine King said to Jianchen. Jianchen said after some thought, Your Majesty, you are correct. If I join a powerful organization, I'll basically have complete access to whatever heavenly resources and cultivation resources I want. However, there are always downsides when there are upsides. In exchange for the nurturing, I will lose my freedom and become trapped under many rules. I would no longer be as free as I am right now. Everyone has their own reasons. With the path that I wish to take, it is inappropriate for me to join those powerful clans and organizations of the Saints' world. Being free may be even more beneficial to my cultivation, Jianchen said seriously. He had received a legacy from the immortals' world. As such, regardless of whether he was interested in joining a powerful organization or clan in the Saints' world or not, he could not afford to come in contact with them at all. Otherwise, he would be doomed. However, the Divine King and the Grand Imperial Protector nodded in much agreement after hearing Jianchen's words. They responded, That's right. Although joining a powerful clan or organization is quite a good choice, you don't necessarily have to join one if you want to become an expert who stands supreme over all life. It is instead easier to forge the mind and willpower of a person by undergoing trials and tribulations among mortals. In the future, you'll still be able to become an expert who stands above all life, one who has reached the peak of the world. The Divine King stared deeply at Jianchen and said, Jianchen, since you have chosen that path, I hope you can follow through with it. Although I don't know whether you can reach the peak of the world with your talent, reaching the primordial realm will be nothing difficult at the very least. Jianchen bowed at the Divine King. He knew that the Divine King was really thinking for him by saying that. Perhaps he had gained the Divine King's favor with his talent, and the Divine King really hoped that Jianchen could make it even further than he could himself. At this moment, the Divine King tossed a medallion to Jianchen. He said, Jianchen, with this token, you can enter the royal collection as you wish. There are all the battle skills I have collected across the years in there. You can view them as you wish. According to the rules that I set down in the past, only overgods who have contributed greatly to the Divine Kingdom can enter the royal collection to pick cultivation's methods or battle skills that they want, and there's a limit on the number. For you, I won't set down any restriction. I only hope that you can make it even further on the road of cultivation in the future. Thank you, Your Majesty. Jianchen clasped his fist and accepted the medallion. The Divine King smiled. However, he seemed to think of something soon afterwards. He stared at the hazy white sky and sighed gently. God King Duanmu was once a shocking prodigy. His usage of the sword was masterful. He was a rare talent who was even comparable to the prodigies painstakingly raised by large sects and clans. There were very few people who were his opponent at the same level of cultivation apart from those who made it onto the God King's throne. The Divine King's voice was filled with emotion as he seemed to be recalling the past. Jianchen had no idea why the Divine King had suddenly mentioned God King Duanmu. However, he did not say anything either. He just sat there quietly and listened. Many years ago, when God King Duanmu was still alive, I was fortunate enough to spar with him. He and I were both mid-God Kings, but I was only able to last 50 moves against him. Duanmu's battle prowess was really terrifying. With Duanmu's talent, if he fully matured, he would have definitely become an absolute power who could dominate an entire region. However, before he could reach the primordial realm, he was slain by the vice leader of the Empyrean demon cult, Huayan. What a pity, what a pity. All he needed was one last step, and God King Duanmu would have become a primordial realm expert. With his strength that was enough to make it onto the God King's throne, he would have been able to face off against all three vice leaders of the Empyrean demon cult all by himself, even if he was only an early infinite prime. It's just a pity that he failed to make it past the final step, and a great man just died like that. Sigh. The Divine King's voice was filled with regret. He felt regret for God King Duanmu's death. Jian Chen said nothing. In a world where the strong preyed on the weak, this was commonplace. Ling Hogong once followed me to wage wars everywhere. He fought to create the territory of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. On the surface, he and I are only related as vassal and king, but I have always treated him as a brother. Now that he has obtained God King Duanmu's legacy, his future accomplishments will definitely be extraordinary. However, he needs time to grow. The Divine King looked at Jian Chen and said, Jian Chen, I have one thing that I must request from you. If the Ling family encounters trouble, please help them out. The Divine King spoke extremely sincerely. Instead, Jian Chen became very confused. Was the Divine King really that compassionate? As the Divine King, it was reasonable for him to look after Ling Hogong. However, he actually cared for Ling Hogong's clan so much as well. Was it because Ling Hogong had obtained God King Duanmu's legacy, so the Divine King was certain that he would soar up one day, which was why he cared so much about him? You speak too seriously, Your Majesty. All Your Majesty needs is a single imperial edict, and who will still be bold enough to touch the Ling family? Jian Chen said. The Empyrean demon cult, the Divine King responded hoarsely. Jian Chen's face changed. He stared at the Divine King in surprise. After a moment of silence, he said, If even you, Your Majesty, cannot stop them, what can I, a mere overgod, do? The Divine King sighed gently. His face was filled with helplessness as he said, Due to some reasons, I can't take part in the matter, so I must rely on you to stop the Empyrean demon cult. Jian Chen was surprised by that. Even the Grand Imperial Protector looked at the Divine King in confusion after he heard that. Chapter 1858. The Een Mountains of Seven's Despair. You really must be joking, Your Majesty. The Empyrean demon cult is so powerful that even those who stand at the peak of an entire plain fear them slightly. If the Empyrean demon cult really does come to cause trouble, what can I do with just my own strength, let alone stop them? Jian Chen smiled bitterly. The Divine King shook his head gently. The Empyrean demon cult really is powerful, far beyond what we, the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian, can handle. However, you don't need to worry, Jian Chen. When the 9th army of the Empyrean demon cult attacked the Divine Kingdom of Three Cauldrons, they already raised the attention of those ancient empires in the southern region. Even the supreme ruler of the southern region, the Eternal Blood Sun Empire, is paying attention to the situation of the Divine Kingdom of Three Cauldrons at all times. If the Empyrean demon cult continues to advance so mindlessly, those large organizations and sects in the southern region will grow impatient. They will definitely stand forward to stop them. Is Your Majesty trying to say that the empires will assist the Divine Kingdom of Three Cauldrons in fending off the Empyrean demon cult? Jian Chen asked. He cared about the matter dearly. He did not care about the survival of the Divine Kingdom of Three Cauldrons. Instead, he cared about whether there would be anyone who would do something about the Empyrean demon cult's unbridled behavior. This was important to him, as it would directly affect what he would choose to do when he came in contact with the cult in the future. The Divine Kingdom of Three Cauldrons is bordering on destruction. Although they have 3 God Kings, even if they work together, they aren't the opponents of the 9th army. If nothing out of the ordinary happens, the Divine Kingdom of Three Cauldrons will be wiped off the map of the Cloud Plain before long. However, the Empyrean demon cult attacking the Divine Kingdom of Three Cauldrons is the limit of what the empires in the region can accept. If the Empyrean demon cult is bold enough to attack the Divine Kingdom of 9 Stars or even our Divine Kingdom of Pingtian, the empires will definitely stand forward to stop them. They would never just watch the Empyrean demon cult swell in power while doing nothing. As a result, there's no reason to fear the cult right now, the Divine King said calmly. He spoke without any particular emotion, making him seem calm and composed. Afterwards, he stared at Jian Chen deeply and continued, As a result, when you come across people from the cult, you won't have to worry about revenge for the time being, even if you directly kill them. If they really do advance recklessly, they would be in deep trouble. They definitely won't be bold enough to declare war on multiple ancient empires at the same time. Moreover, our southern region has an eternal empire as well. Jian sat on the stone seat silently. He thought about why the divine king would tell him this. It was as if he was certain that the people from the cult would come, and he hoped that Jian could stop or even directly kill them. As a great god king, it's not very likely for the divine king to say these useless things without good reason. Will the people from the cult really come to the divine kingdom of Pingtian? And will they come for Ling Hogong? Jian wondered. He was rather uncertain. However, Jian had become fast friends with Ling Hogong long ago. Even though they did not spend much time together in God King Duanmu's dwelling, the two of them had formed quite a deep friendship. As long as the matter involved Ling Hogong and the Ling family, Jian would never just stand by. If the people from the Empyrean demon cult really did come to make things difficult for the Ling family, Jian would go forth and assist them even without the divine king's reminder. Of course, that was only if they were not god kings. Afterwards, Jian finally got the opportunity to state why he had come. He asked the divine king about other heavenly resources that could heal the soul, like the soul-drawing lotus. He wanted to collect some so that he could wake up Kaya. The divine king only spoke after pausing for a while. I do know many pills and heavenly resources that can heal the soul, but there are extremely few that are on the same level or even surpass the soul-drawing lotus. You'll probably only be able to find them in the Een Mountains of Seven's Despair. The Een Mountains of Seven's Despair? Your Majesty, may I ask what kind of place it is? Can I really find heavenly resources that are on par with the soul-drawing lotus there? The Een Mountains of Seven's Despair is located on the boundary between the divine kingdom of Qingyang and the divine kingdom of Dadian. It's a mountain range that is always covered by seven-colored, poisonous miasma. Due to the potency of the miasma and how it can corrode the soul, even god kings are unwilling to venture in there. Overgods are only able to move about on the outskirts. Due to the natural obstacle of the miasma, people rarely set foot in the mountains at all. Naturally, a few extraordinary heavenly resources would appear there after a very long time. Although many of these heavenly resources are extremely poisonous, there is a small portion that is useful for cultivation. You might just be able to find heavenly resources that can heal the soul there. At this moment, the divine king waved his hand. A few plants immediately flew over by themselves from the depths of the royal gardens, landing in his hand. There just happened to be an origin-gathering flower among them. I can tell that you're in urgent need of heavenly resources that can heal the soul. Here are 3 jade-green azure sky flowers. They can also heal the soul, except they're not as great as the soul-drawing lotus. I'll gift all of these to you along with a few other exotic flowers and herbs. The divine king extended his hand with the plants towards Jian. Jian hesitated slightly before accepting it firmly. He knew that he could not decline these things. Accepting them would be equivalent to owing the divine king a favor, which would also show what circumstances he was in. There would only be benefits to the Tianyuan clan from that. Feel free to check out the royal collection. You might be able to find something useful there. Moreover, I'll allow you to take 3 copies of the battle skills and cultivation methods from there with you as long as they're below the 7th grade of the truth tier so that you clansmen can use them, the divine king said to Jian in the end. Only the Grand Imperial Protector who knew the divine king exceedingly well understood that the divine king was taking extremely great care of Jian. He had given him a bit of everything. If he were some other overgod, he would have to make a great contribution to the kingdom in exchange for only a single thing that Jian had received. It could be said that Jian had obtained many benefits despite doing nothing at all. After bidding farewell to the divine king, Jian immediately thought of the ancestor of the Mo family who had taken his god-tier armor, and the Een Mountains of Seven's Despair that laid on the border of the divine kingdom of Qingyang and the divine kingdom of Dadian. Right now, he was tempted to go to the divine kingdom of Qingyang immediately to take back his god-tier armor from the ancestor of the Mo family. After that, he could go to the Een Mountains of Seven's Despair for heavenly resources. However, after some close thought, Jian decided to visit the royal collection first. He had obtained the divine king's permission to view all the books in there, regardless of grade or tier. Moreover, he could take 3 copies of cultivation methods and battle skills that were below the 7th grade of the truth tier back to his clans so that his clansmen could use them. Although the books in the royal collection might not necessarily be beneficial to him, the 3 copies of battle skills or cultivation methods possessed quite a great attraction to Jianqin. He had even felt excited over it, as if he could see the day when the Tianyuan clan had risen up. 6th grade cultivation methods of the truth tier would directly allow people to cultivate to overgod, while battle skills of the same grade could be used by overgods as well. Although he had left behind a few overgod cultivation methods and battle skills back at the clan, there would never be enough of them. This was because not all people were suitable for a certain cultivation method. The more cultivation methods he could prepare, the more choice his clansmen would have, and that would increase their chances of becoming powerful. Chapter 1859. The Ling Family in Danger. 1. The royal collection was located towards the back of the royal palace. It was a glistening tower completely built out of gold. The tower had a total of 9 floors, and a shockingly powerful barrier surrounded it. There were not many guards who were purposefully stationed around the royal collection. Squadrons of soldiers from the Royal Divine Army would patrol around in the distance on their 3 flamed divine horses. This was because a god king had personally cast down the barrier around the royal collection. It was so powerful that even weaker god kings, let alone overgods, would need to attack it several times before it would give way. It was exactly because of this that stationing guards around a place like the royal collection would be basically useless. Jianqin used the medallion that the divine king had given to him to open up the barrier. He entered the royal collection without any obstructions. Many battle skills and cultivation methods were placed within the royal collection. All the battle skills and cultivation methods were divided among the 9 floors. The cultivation methods and battle skills on the 1st floor were naturally all of the 1st grade. The methods in which the cultivation methods and battle skills were stored varied greatly. Not only were there some recorded in scrolls and books, but there were many carved into stone tablets as well. Jianqin even saw a huge turtle shell covered with the traces left behind by time. There were complicated and profound images on there, possessing traces of the laws of the world. It was also a cultivation method, but it had not been stored in words. Instead, it was stored as images. It could only be understood and not read. A powerful barrier blocked the entrance to each floor of the tower. Jianqin used the medallion he had obtained from the Divine King to make his way through them, directly arriving on the 6th floor. The higher he climbed, the fewer cultivation methods and battle skills he saw. There were thousands on the 1st floor, while the 6th floor only possessed around 100 battle skills, cultivation methods, and notes on comprehension left behind by people of the past. Jianqin was not in a hurry to go to the 7th floor. He stopped on the 6th floor and carefully read through all the cultivation methods, battle skills, and notes on cultivation there. Even though he possessed a better cultivation method and had no use for the cultivation methods present, even though the battle skills were useless to him, he still hoped that reading them and absorbing their essence would assist his future cultivation to a certain degree. This was basically absorbing whatever benefits they had to offer and making up for any personal flaws. Although Jianqin did not find any particular item that was useful to him, his current actions had basically benefited him already. A day later, Jianqin managed to read through all the cultivation methods, battle skills, and notes on comprehension left on the 6th floor. After thinking through it seriously, he chose 3 cultivation methods to copy and take back to the Tianyuan clan. After doing all that, Jianqin went up to the 7th floor without any reluctance at all. All the cultivation methods, battle skills, and so on that floor had reached the 7th grade of truth tier. Just like the 6th floor, everything here was beneficial to overgods, except the quantity was slightly less again. There were only around 80 items. This time, Jianqin remained on the 7th floor for 2 days before making his way to the 8th floor. There were even fewer items on the 8th floor. There were only 5 cultivation methods for battle skills and 4 notebooks on cultivation left behind by people of the past. There was not a lot, but Jianqin's eyes shone. Even his breathing became rather ragged. This was because all the cultivation methods on the 8th floor had reached the level of God Kings. 8th grade cultivation methods could allow people to cultivate to God King. Under normal circumstances, only God Kings could grasp and use 8th grade battle skills. It was almost impossible for overgods to grasp them. To no surprise, among the 4 battle skills, Jian-Chen discovered the divine finger of void-crushing meteor that Yang Kai had used during their fight. The divine finger of void-crushing meteor was the most inferior battle skill out of the 4, but it was also the easiest one among them for overgods to grasp. Every single battle skill and cultivation method from the 8th floor would be enough to raise a storm of blood if it was released to the outside world. Countless people would throw themselves into the fight without any concern for their lives. Even overgods would die. He really is a God King after all. He actually has several 8th grade cultivation methods and battle skills. These items are basically priceless to all divine kingdoms. Jian-Chen sighed in amazement from the bottom of his heart. It really did surprise him. Afterwards, Jian-Chen began to focus his attention on studying the battle skills and cultivation methods. Jian-Chen felt like he had benefited greatly from the notes on cultivation in particular. The notes on cultivation were essentially a crystallization of their entire life of cultivation. It was condensed after countless years of accumulation. It contained everything they understood. Although there were no notes from God Kings who had comprehended the laws of the sword, viewing the comprehensions of various God Kings was equivalent to experiencing everything they had gone through in their life. Jian-Chen felt like he had gained a completely new outlook after wandering through the lives of various different people, as if he had opened a completely new door within him. This time, Jian-Chen remained on the 8th floor for a total of 7 days. When he put down the final scroll after that time, there was an additional sliver of comprehension in his eyes. Although Jian-Chen did not try to comprehend the battle skills in the days he spent within the royal collection, the benefits he had gained were far greater than grasping an 8th grade battle skill. After reading so many cultivation methods and witnessing so many truth-tier battle skills, his understanding that anything was possible only increased. I can probably create my own 6th grade cultivation methods and battle skills now. I just need to spend quite a lot of effort. Jian-Chen's eyes shone abnormally brightly. His eyes were like 2 gems in the night. This was what he had gained from the royal collection. Although he had come across many cultivation methods in the past, it was still a pitiful amount, not to mention that their quality was limited. Naturally, they would not bring him much help at all. However, it was different now. Jian-Chen had read through the tremendous amount of cultivation methods and battle skills within the royal collection and absorbed their essence. He used other people's comprehensions to confirm or reject his own comprehensions, allowing him to understand very much. Unknowingly, his comprehension of the laws of the world had increased slightly again. Of course, the reason why this could happen was all because of Jian-Chen's superior affinity for comprehension. If he possessed a poor affinity, he would not have been able to benefit at all, no matter how great the circumstances were. I've managed to take another tiny step away from the partial achievement of Sword Spirit. I really do look forward to the day when I reach late Sword Spirit. Not only will I be able to refine a 3rd strand of profound sword chi, but my level of comprehension will also directly surpass the boundaries of Overgod and reach God King. Jian-Chen was satisfied. He had benefited far more than he had expected from his trip to the royal collection. Afterwards, Jian-Chen left the 8th floor. He used his medallion to bypass the barrier, entering the final floor of the royal collection, the 9th floor. At the same time, in the sword-seeking province, a presence that was terrifyingly powerful to all the occupants there suddenly appeared. It instantly engulfed the entire province. Black clouds suddenly rolled over from the horizon, and a demonic aura filled the skies. At that moment, the blazing sun in the sky lost all of its radiance. 3 figures appeared at the front of the clouds. They gave off a monstrous presence as they shot over from the distance like they were riding the clouds. Under the shocked gazes of countless people, they directly barged into the province in a brutal and overbearing manner. With the appearance of the 3 people, the sky above the province rapidly darkened. Demonic aura formed a huge black cloud that covered the skies, blocking out the light and reducing the world to darkness. Chapter 1860. The Ling Family in Danger. 2. All the people throughout the sword-seeking province began to panic from the sudden change. At this moment, everyone within the sword-seeking province raised their heads and stared at the three figures in the sky. Their eyes were filled with deep dread and shock. Overgods! They're overgods! Oh my God, the three people in the sky are all overgods. What powerful demonic aura! These people have come with ill intentions. The sword-seeking province is in trouble. Quick, leave the sword-seeking province. They're from the Empyrean demon cult. When the 9th army of the Empyrean demon cult attacked the divine kingdom of Three Cauldrons, they would leave the ground scarlet red wherever they passed. Blood even formed rivers. No one can keep their lives before the Empyrean demon cult. Run! Instantly, the sword-seeking province fell into a panic. The Empyrean demon cult's invasion of the divine kingdom of Three Cauldrons had led to a hubbub of discussion. Even many people who had never heard of the Empyrean demon cult in the past were now completely familiar with the demonic cult. As a result, many people immediately recognized the three overgods who had come. This was because the black clouds formed from their demonic aura had already explained their statuses as part of the demonic cult. During this period of time, all the people began to charge out of the provincial city's gates frantically. They all wanted to leave. In the sky, the three people looked down on everyone. Their gazes were cold, and they seemed like they stood on the black clouds. The three people were the overgods that the commander of the 9th army, Yan Wuming, had sent over. One of them was a general within the 9th army. His name was Lu Shan, and he was a mid-overgod. The other two were his deputies. They were also overgods and only one minor cultivation realm weaker than Lu Shan. They were overgods. Lu Shan smiled coldly on the black clouds as he watched the cultivators below flee. Bloodthirstiness appeared in his eyes. He extended a hand, and a huge net woven from black threads suddenly expanded, falling onto the sword-seeking province below. The black net expanded at an unbelievable rate as it fell. In just a short instance, it had extended beyond the horizon. When it fell out of the sky, it actually managed to cover the entire sword-seeking province that was as large as a kingdom in a lower world. Chilling wails rang out. A few of the people who were just about to leave the province came in contact with the net. A black, demonic flame immediately sprang up on their bodies. It could not be put out. The demonic flames were extremely powerful. People below godhood did not even manage to last for 5 seconds under the flames. Under the gazes of many, they were completely reduced to ashes. Even deities were unable to last for very long under the demonic flames. They were also reduced to ash. There was even a god who came in contact with the black net. He had also been set on fire. He wailed out painfully and miserably under the flames. It was a horrific sight. Countless people stopped. They stared at the net with pale faces. Currently, their faces had become extremely ugly. Some of them were even filled with despair. Empyrean demon cult, this is the territory of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Are you not afraid that you'll enrage the divine king with your actions and make him come to kill you off? At this moment, a furious yell rang out from the Ling family. The Ling family had already activated their protective formation. It flickered with a metallic glint as countless swords revolved around its surroundings. This was an overgod-level formation. Duke Ling had personally cast it down, and the formation could both attack and defend. The patriarch of the Ling family, Ling Majian, and all the elders within the Ling family currently hovered in the air. They stood within the area that the formation protected as they stared at the three overgods in the sky furiously. Haha! Lu Shan began to chuckle loudly when he heard Ling Majian's threat. He said, "Why would the mere divine King Pingtian possesses the audacity to stand up to the Empyrean demon cult?" Lu Shan looked at Ling Majian who had threatened him. He sneered, "You should be the patriarch of the Ling family, right? Patriarch Ling, you're not stupid. Do you think the divine King Pingtian will say anything if our Empyrean demon cult just wipes out your measly sword-seeking province?" Lu Shan spoke arrogantly. He was completely fearless, and he did not treat the divine King Pingtian with any importance at all. Ling Majian's face became extremely ugly. He possessed a rough understanding of the Empyrean demon cult's strength. Of their 9 armies, any single one of them could wipe out the divine kingdom of Pingtian easily. If the divine kingdom of Pingtian wanted to stand up to them, there would indeed only be death. Moreover, aside from the 9 armies, the Empyrean demon cult possessed a few God King protectors and 3 vice leaders that were even more terrifying. They were far more than what the divine kingdom of Pingtian could handle. I am on a mission, so I have no interest in wasting time with you ants. Patriarch Ling, I don't care what you do, but get Ling Hogong to show his ass immediately. Otherwise, not only will your Ling family be massacred, but even all the people in the provincial city will suffer the same fate as you, Lu Shan said coldly. His voice rang through the entire provincial city. Don't kill me, I'm innocent. I have no relationship with the Ling family at all. Patriarch Ling, save us. Patriarch Ling, all the lives of the people in the city lies in your hands. You can't just abandon us. Patriarch Ling, find Senior Ling this instance. Once he returns, we won't have to die. The sword-seeking province had completely descended into a mess. The people in the city had no hopes to flee, so they all arrived around the Ling family to beg them desperately. Their eyes were filled with the hope of survival. All the people in the Ling family fell silent. Patriarch, what should we do? An elder of the Ling family asked Ling Majian with an ugly complexion. The other elders said nothing, but they all looked at Ling Majian. Patriarch, it's best if you try to find a way to get the ancestor back. We can't just let so many people in the city die for nothing. No, we can't contact the ancestor, let alone let the ancestor know what's happening here. Isn't there still the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan? He even managed to defeat Yang Kai, so he'll definitely be able to save us. Patriarch, did the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan leave a method of communication with you when he left? It's best if you contact him immediately. You can't contact the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan. After all, they're from the Empyrean demon cult. We can't drag the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan into this mess as well. A few elders in the Ling family also lost their composure in the face of this life-or-death situation. They argued loudly around Ling Majian. Some of them were afraid of death, so they were trying to find a way to survive. At the same time, there were some of them who did not fear death. Determination flooded their eyes. Ling Majian closed his eyes bitterly. Currently, he was faced with a tough choice. He was stuck in an intense internal struggle. The ancestor has already vanished for many years. I don't know where the ancestor is. If you want to attack people, attack the Ling family. Leave the innocent people in the city out of this, okay? Ling Majian said painfully. Chapter 1861. Benefiting greatly, you want to use the lives of your Ling family to exchange for the millions of lives in the provincial city? How you wish. Commander Lu Shan stood on the black clouds and laughed fiercely. His cold eyes were filled with a bloodthirsty craziness. He extended a finger, and several strands immediately broke away from the black net that enveloped the entire provincial city. They wounded around several dozen cultivators. Ling Majian, let me repeat myself again. If you want to save the millions of lives in the city, get Ling Hogong to show his ass immediately. I don't have that much time to waste with you. I'll kill a group of people for every day you waste. I'll keep that up until Ling Hogong appears, Lu Shan said coldly. He closed his hand, and the black threads immediately tightened. Like knives, they cut the people trapped in threads to pieces. The cultivators all cried out miserably. Their bodies were reduced to pieces as blood dyed the streets. Even their souls failed to escape, as the black threads had cut it into pieces, so it dispersed as a result. All the people of the Ling family watched this happen silently. All of their hearts weighed very heavily. The Ling family was a mighty clan with an overgod. With the entire divine kingdom in perspective, they were an existence that stood at the top, yet before the 3 overgods of the Empyrean demon cult, they were so insignificant. They could not even fight back. They were reduced to sitting ducks. The people of the Ling family were greatly affected by what happened that day. However, they could not do anything about it. The Empyrean demon cult was just too powerful. Doesn't your heart hurt? Fair enough. The people I'm killing have nothing to do with your Ling family. No matter how many of them I kill, it won't hurt your heart at all. Since that's the case, Lu Shan looked at the people hiding in the formation. He smiled coldly, and a black sword appeared in his hand. He directly swung it at the formation. The strike was filled with a demonic aura. It caused the thick demonic clouds in the sky to churn. They seemed to be a part of the sword, so when Lu Shan swung down, it pulsed violently. A black sword condensed from the clouds emerged from the mass, moving with his sword. It landed on the protective barrier of the Ling family with devastating power. Rumble. This was a powerful strike from a mid-over-god. It was so powerful that it had surpassed the imaginations of all the people in the province. The protective formation of the Ling family suddenly shattered with a deafening boom. Powerful energy splayed out, reducing all the building of the Ling family to ruins. Countless people vomited blood as their blood drained from their faces. A few weaker of the servants directly lost their lives under the powerful pulse of energy. I'll kill the people of the Ling family then. I'll kill one every day until Ling Hogong appears, said Lu Shan. He appeared before a god of the clan as if he had teleported and smashed his head to pieces with a palm strike, destroying his soul. An elder of the Ling family died just like that. The matter of the 3 overgods pinning down the sword-seeking province spread very quickly like a storm. Very soon, the news made its way across the entire divine kingdom of Pingtian and even beyond that. It caused a huge uproar. Back to the 9th floor of the royal collection in the royal palace of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Jian Chen currently sat on the floor. He held an ancient scroll. He was completely absorbed in it. He devoted all his attention to it. This was the notes on cultivation and the comprehensions of the laws of the sword left behind by a god king who had comprehended the same laws as Jian Chen. Jian Chen was fatally attracted to the ancient scroll. He could not resist his urges at all. Jian Chen closed his eyes after reading the contents of the scroll. He comprehended the contents of the scroll seriously. A faint layer of silver light appeared around him. It seemed like Jian Chen was flashing. In particular, when he closed his eyes, he was surrounded by the light. He had a calm expression on his face. It made him seem divine. Gradually, tadpole-sized sword qi appeared around Jian Chen. Every single strand was filled with intelligence. They were pure white and flawless, revolving around Jian Chen slowly. Clearly, the scroll left behind by the God King was quite useful to Jian Chen, allowing him to benefit greatly. Several hours later, Jian Chen opened his eyes slowly. A sliver of understanding appeared in his eyes. A late God King probably wrote this ancient scroll, Jian Chen said to himself softly. He carefully returned the ancient scroll to where he had taken it from before continuing his way through the other books and scrolls. Jian Chen also remained on the 9th floor for 7 days. During that time he read all the books and scrolls there. He was about to leave. Suddenly, Jian Chen's eyes narrowed. He discovered an inconspicuous metal box in a corner of the 9th floor. If it were not for the fact he had just happened to glance over, he might have missed it. Jian Chen hesitated slightly. In the end, he still walked over and opened it. He discovered a thick, ancient book inside as well as a thumb-sized pearl. The Smithy Grand Collection. 4 powerful words were written on the cover of the book. Jian Chen's eyes lit up when he saw the 4 words. He had to personally forge the twin swords in the future, so he needed to dabble in forging weapons. Due to the fact that the swords he forged on the Tianyuan continent were not of any particularly high grade and the fact that the sword spirits were there to guide him, he was not required to have much expertise. However, in the future, the grades of the swords he needed to forge would constantly rise. He would need to have a certain degree of mastery over smithing to forge the twin swords into god artifacts. Although he could find other people to forge the weapons for him, how would he be able to do that with something as important as the twin swords? This pearl should be a memory pearl. Xian Do mentioned this type of thing. Memory pearls are extremely tough and very hard to destroy. Normally, they're used to record extremely important things, which are far greater than the things you can find in books or scrolls. According to Xian Do, memory pearls are extremely rare. Under ordinary circumstances, only experts who rule over a huge area can possess them. It shouldn't exist within the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Jianchen looked at the pearl again. He felt extremely curious. Fortunately, he had learned enough about memory pearls from Xian Do. He knew the way to use it. Jianchen let out the senses of his soul, directing it towards the memory pearl slowly. When the senses approached the memory pearl, a suction force immediately appeared out of nowhere, directly sucking his senses away. Teleportation formations. A tremendous amount of information was presented before Jianchen when his senses entered the memory pearl. To Jianchen's joy, the information recorded within the memory pearl detailed the method to create teleportation formations. There were inferior and superior teleportation formations. Inferior formations could only carry people a short distance. On the other hand, superior teleportation formations could teleport people to extremely distant places. With the tremendous cloud plain as an example, directly taking people from the southern region to the northern region would be no problem. Let alone teleporting between regions, but even teleportation between planes and worlds was possible, given that the person who wanted to cast down the formation possessed a great mastery of the laws of formations. Teleportation formations. I never thought there would actually be something that detailed teleportation formations here. I actually found it here. Fate is in my favor. Jianchen could not help but laugh aloud as he held the memory pearl. He was extremely excited. Ever since he had come to the Saints' world, Jianchen had never felt so emotional and excited. This was because the information on teleportation formations tied into just too many things for him. It was even more important than his life, as it was related to his hopes of being able to return home. Chapter 1862. Saving the Ling family. Jianchen sucked in a deep breath and forcefully suppressed his excitement, slowly calming himself down. However, his gaze towards the memory pearl still burned with unconcealable desire. When he had entered the royal collection, his main intention was to take away 3 cultivation methods or battle skills with him, which the divine king had given him permission to do. This was because 3 cultivation methods or battle skills that were at the level of overgods was far too significant to the Tianyuan clan because they were still developing. After that, he was going to try to benefit through reading and viewing the tremendous number of cultivation methods and battle skills. However, now that he had accidentally found a memory pearl that recorded the method to create teleportation formations on the 9th floor, it was a joyous surprise. This was because he could tell with a single glance that the method to create formations within the memory pearl was of an extremely high grade. Clearly, something as great as this could not be purchased. Although there were also various formations available on the market, and they could even be found in a few stores, they were pretty much all basic items. They would not be too useful for casting down teleportation formations that could cross worlds. Jianchen placed the Smithy Grand Collection aside without any hesitation. He placed all his focus on the memory pearl. Jianchen had spent many years back on the Tianyuan continent to comprehend teleportation formations. However, he was nowhere close to casting down formations that could cross worlds. As a matter of fact, he probably could not even cast down a regular teleportation formation. This was because the teleportation formations he cast down on the Tianyuan continent initially were more like markers. Their only purpose was to act as a beacon of light in the dark so that he could find his way back. However, he had still managed to accumulate much experience through the years of comprehension. It had set a solid foundation for him. It was just like building a tower. Once the foundation was set well, only building the tower above was needed. Jianchen was completely entranced by the memory pearl. It made him completely forget about himself. At that moment, he had become completely submerged in the information about teleportation formations. Jianchen would only be considered to have formally taken a step towards creating teleportation formations after viewing the memory pearl. A sliver of understanding gradually appeared in Jianchen's eyes. The memory pearl seemed to have opened a gate in his head, finally allowing him to truly come in contact with another world of comprehension. Teleportation formations were complicated and profound. Although there were many people in the saint's world who tried to comprehend them, most of them would remain as beginners. Only a small number of impressive people would accomplish something. However, Jian Chun already possessed a great affinity for comprehension, not to mention the foundation he had built for himself in the lower world. As a result, Jian Chun only needed a very short time to become well acquainted with its contents, while other people would need several dozen or even hundreds of years. By the time Jian Chun made his way off the 9th floor, half a month had already passed. Jian Chun memorized all the contents of the memory pearl in that half a month. He only needed to actually attempt to create something himself. He had even memorized all the contents within the Smithy Grand Collection. Of course, memorization was only memorization. There were still many problems to resolve if he wanted to actually cast down a teleportation formation. Most importantly, he lacked the required comprehension of the laws of formations. The laws of formations and the laws of smithing were also parts of the 3,000 laws. They were just more auxiliary than offensive. Jian Chun left the royal palace and made his way through the bustling streets by himself. He directly made his way to the courtyard that he temporarily stayed at within the royal capital. Jian Chun moved extremely quickly. Before long, he returned to the quiet place. Patriarch Jian Chun, you finally come back. Mo Yen immediately threw down her fishing pole from beside the pool when she saw Jian Chun. She ran over excitedly as joy filled her face. Patriarch Jian Chun, you're finally back. You just left Sister Shiyu and me here. We did not even dare to set a foot out of this place because we were afraid that the people of the Yang family would come to find trouble with us again. Mo Yan's excitement vanished instantly when she arrived beside Jian Chun. She made a bitter face and spoke pitifully. Her face changed faster than someone could change the pages of a book. She was excited just before, yet she had become sad in a split second. Don't worry. In the future, Yang Kai won't dare to act recklessly in the royal capital. Jian Chun smiled as he comforted Mo Yen. Shiyu also emerged from her room. She said sternly, Patriarch, during the time you spent at the royal capital, a big matter has happened in the divine kingdom of Pingtian. The Empyrean demon cult has sent 3 overgods to deal with the Ling family. They've pinned down the entire sword-seeking province. What did you say? Jian Chen's face changed. He stared at Shiyu closely and said, when did this happen? What's the situation with the Ling family now? It has already been half a month. During that time, the 3 overgods killed quite a few people from the sword-seeking province. Even the Ling family has lost a few experts. Shiyu was rather stern as she continued, during this period of time, they've kept the Ling family trapped, killing one of their member every day. Now, 4 gods have already passed away as well as over 10 deities. If Ling Hogong still doesn't show himself, they'll keep up the killing until the entire Ling family or even entire the sword-seeking province is dead. Jian Chen's face immediately sunk when he heard how the Ling family had actually lost so many godhood experts. A vicious light flickered through his eyes. It has already been half a month. Hasn't the Divine King, His Majesty, and the Grand Imperial Protector done anything? There are so many overgods in the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. Why hasn't any one of them gone to save them? Jian Chun growled. Shiyu shook her head. Deep fear filled her eyes, and she said, they're from the Empyrean demon cult. Who would be bold enough to offend them? Whether it's the Divine King, the Grand Imperial Protector, or the other overgods in the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian, none of them have responded to the matter at all. Looks like they don't plan on helping the Ling family. But that's expected because once they interfere, it would be equivalent to standing up to the Empyrean demon cult. With the Empyrean demon cult's strength, they only need to send out a few more people and the people interfering would be done for. Even the Divine Kingdom's entire strength is not enough to hold back any one of the armies of the Empyrean demon cult. Didn't the Divine King say that there's no need to fear the Empyrean demon cult? Since there's no need to fear them, why doesn't he help the Ling family? Even if he can't do anything because of some reasons, the Grand Imperial Protector can, right? Jian Chen murmured to himself softly. The light in his eyes flickered with uncertainty. Or should I say, the true intentions of the Divine King is for me to oppose the Empyrean demon cult so that he can draw out the person who supports me against the Empyrean demon cult? Jian Chen wondered inside. He could not help but think of Fairy Hao Yu and Tong Tian. He had not seen either of them in many years. Even Jian Chen was uncertain whether he and Fairy Hao Yu were only partners for a deal, or if they had gradually formed a friendship. However, there was no doubt about Fairy Hao Yu's power. She was basically confirmed to be a primordial realm expert. As for Tong Tian, he was only on friendly terms with him at most. They were not even close friends. As a matter of fact, Jian Chen did not even know who he was before he had appeared in God King Duanmu's dwelling. Other people don't know about my relationship with Tong Tian. They only saw Tong Tian save me while being protected by a God King. Maybe they thought of something because of this and mistook it as me being close to Tong Tian or something. Or maybe they think I have a great background or something. If that's the case, the Divine King really did mean it when he said that there was no need to fear the Empyrean demon cult. Or is he doing what I think he is trying to do, getting me to stand against the Empyrean demon cult on purpose so that he can draw out Fairy Hao Yu and Tong Tian through me and use them to stand up to the Empyrean demon cult? For the time being, Jian Chen was rather uncertain about the Divine King's intentions. However, determination flooded Jian Chen's eyes soon after. Regardless of what the Divine King is trying to do, I have to stop the Empyrean demon cult from devastating the Ling family. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.